The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
Yo, what up? This is Rocky Asuka Romero of Chaos, and you are listening to Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keeping It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keeping It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith and Chris Samsa from sportofprowrestling.com. On today's show, we'll be previewing G1 Climax 30, answering your questions, and covering all latest news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. You can support our show by subscribing to the Social Suplex Podcast Network or to Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can also get all the podcasts and columns over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Pro Wrestling Tee store, prowrestlingtees.com/socialsuplex. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style t-shirt. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and clicking on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. This week's episode is brought to you by Manscaped, who is best in men's below-the-belt grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. They obsess over the technology developments to provide you the best tools for your grooming experience. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code SUPLEX at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping. And use the code SUPLEX at manscaped.com. And make sure you check out the NJPW EXT, the only browser extension for NJPWWorld.com, with features like dark mode, improved translations and layouts, custom and shared playlists, synchronized viewing parties, and much, much more. It takes NJPW World to the next level. You can visit njpwext.us today for details. And like usual, like you heard in the intro, joined by the young boy Josh Smith, but we also have Chris Samsa joining us once again from sportofprowrestling.com and voicesofwrestling.com. Chris, how you doing, man?
Oh, it's G1 season, so I am both exhausted and energized at the same time.
We had a first on this show.
Oh, I thought we were going to kayfabe it.
Dude, Josh always does. Any time that we have a botch, he always has to bring it up. Nobody.
Why was Jeremy talking so fast on that intro?
Oh man, so guys, the first time ever in the history of this show, we were just laying down audio gold. I mean, we were sitting here recording, just repertoire, bada bing, bada boom, bouncing back and forth, and then suddenly Jeremy's like, wait, we're not recording, and I was just gutted. Sam's face just dropped. I saw a tear fall from Jeremy's eye. It was just. Yeah, what a moment. That was lost into the ether.
Yeah, Chris almost walked off. He almost,
threw my headphones down, and I was just like, rookies.
Chris was big leaguing us. He was like, my time is precious.
Well,
what was this, amateur hour?
Good thing we're only like 5 minutes in and not on hour 3.
Yeah. It's okay because I made a joke about Chris making Kevin Kelly look better, and then he said he was trying to ride Kevin's coattails, and then I made a joke about us riding his coattails. I didn't feel super strong about that joke, so I'm kind of glad it got cut.
I made a great joke about the KOPW, though, that I don't think I can revisit.
Oh, that was so good.
You're all going to miss out.
That was
going to be
funny.
Between the three of us. It'll be on the deep cuts.
Yeah. So obviously we're here today to talk about G1 Climax 30. I'm going to be previewing all the blocks, the participants, some of the big matches. Also, we have Chris on here, and he's been doing a lot of work researching stats, and he's been making the towns on all these podcasts, so he has a lot of great gold for us tonight as we walk through this tournament. And we know G1 is one of those times of the season where we get a lot of new listeners here at Keeping It Strong Style. And just in general, it's a lot of new people jumping into New Japan and kind of looking for a guide and kind of where to get started. And especially with the G1, if you're new to it, might seem a little complicated at first, but it's really not. And so we'll break it all down here for you. So we're going to start with a little overview here. So G1 Climax, there are 20 participants split into 2 equal blocks. We have an A block and B block. Each entrant will wrestle everyone at least once in their block to score points. Winning a match scores 2 points. A time limit draw scores 1 point. Losing a match, double countout or double DQ, scores 0 points. All matches, excluding the final, have a 30-minute time limit, making draws plausible. The wrestler with the most points at the end of the final nights of block action will win their block and move to the final, which will see the winner of the A block face the winner of the B block. If the blocks are finalized and there is a tie on points, then the winner is decided via a head-to-head tiebreaker. That means, for example, if Okada and Ibushi finished with equal points, but Okada defeated Ibushi in the block, then Okada will progress to the final. And whoever wins the final will officially be the winner of G1 Climax 30, and their reward is a contract guaranteeing them the right to challenge for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship at Wrestle Kingdom 15.
Yeah, absolutely. And one great thing is, as we kind of go through this endeavor, we're talking about 19 shows over 30 days. And just like in years past, and if you're jumping on with us for the first time, that's awesome. Those of you that are returning, thank you. We're week to week, we're going to be providing you with insights. We watch literally every single match. We're going to break down every single card, every single block, and just kind of keep you up to date with the ongoings. Different scenarios, everything, all that good stuff. So, you definitely should watch it all. But if you're just getting into it, this is a great starting point to kind of help you with that.
Definitely. And so of the 20 men that have entered in the 2019 tournament, there are only 3 changes from last year. So this year we don't have Lance Archer, Bad Luck Fale, or the current IWGP US champion Jon Moxley. They have been replaced with Minoru Suzuki, Yoshihashi, and Yujiro Takahashi. So for the first time in G1 Climax history, there are no fresh faces entering the field. Something also very important to kind of keep your eyes on. As always the case in New Japan, picking up a victory over a champion puts you in line to challenge for that champion's title. So all the current champions, heavyweight champions, are in the tournament. So we have obviously Tetsuya Naito as the IWGP Heavyweight and IC champion. We have Minoru Suzuki, who is the current Never champion. We have Will Ospreay, who is the Rev Pro British Heavyweight champion. And then we have Tai Chi and Zack Sabre Jr. in the tournament as well. And they are our current IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team champions. And so, like we've seen in previous times, if one of those champions lose to somebody in their block, that typically sets up a title match post G1 in the fall. Obviously, this year, the fall schedule looks a little bit different than previous years because typically the G1's usually starting in late July and wraps up at the end of August. And now we're starting a little bit late here in September. And so only having the Power Struggle tour after this tour. So it's going to be interesting to see when these title matches could potentially happen.
Let me ask you guys, Lance Archer, Bad Luck Fale, and Jon Moxley, or Suzuki, Yoshihashi, and Yujiro?
Either. It's kind of a wash for me. I don't know. Archer was great last year, but that was a breakout G1 for him. I'll take Moxley over any of those guys, but Suzuki's suitable, certainly, right? So it's and Fale equals Yujiro.
Yeah, I think that those are the contemporaries. Yujiro for Fale, Yoshihashi for Archer, and Moxley for Suzuki. Now, here's the hot take. Last year, if you had said that we were getting Suzuki, Yoshihashi, and Yujiro over the other group prior to Lance Archer's breakout, I think most people would have liked the group we're getting this year better.
Yeah, and I think Yoshihashi was a little more of a I think he was more endearing a year ago than he is now.
That's true.
So I think he's been kind of broken down a little bit. He hasn't had a great year up until, I guess, recently, post-pandemic, right? So when they came back from COVID, they've run the never 6-man situation. You finally got a belt and all that. So but I don't think that that's necessarily endeared him to the audience. But there are some big Yoshihashi fans out there, the Hashi Hive, as my friend Rich Fan calls them.
Well, he's on top of the mountain right now. He is 1/3 of the never open weight 6-man champions. Had a successful defense this past weekend. Like, he's on top of the world right now.
Basically, this is the best trio I've seen in wrestling. Him, Goto, and Ishii since, I don't know, The Shield. Like, they're just incredible.
I'm gonna pepper in my first good stat here because it's it's a Yoshihashi. So against his block, against the rest of the B block, Yoshihashi is 3-18 in singles matches, which is by far the worst. Of his 3 wins, which are all against Evil, 2 of them were before Evil even became Evil.
Watanabe.
He was Watanabe. So you could make the case that he's really 1-18 against his block competitors in singles matches.
Wow.
But I'm going to give him the other 2 because it's still bad. So he's probably gonna have a tough time.
Now, Jeremy, you brought up a really good point. Something to look out for during tournaments are, when champions take losses. Although I do remember the year it was 2 years ago when Juice Robinson was the U.S. champion and he lost to a bunch of people. We were like, oh man, who's getting the shot against him? And then once the tournament was over, he ended up fighting Cody, who wasn't even in the tournament. So it's not always
right. So yeah, it doesn't always work out that way, but typically you might get a few title matches based off of a champion losing.
Now, not to diminish the championships because they're highly important here. And obviously, like you mentioned, Jeremy, the winner does get a chance to go on and challenge for the title at Tokyo Dome or Wrestle Kingdom or whatever that might end up looking like this year. But ultimately, the guy who wins this is truly not only earning a title shot, but they're also getting the accolade of winning the G1, which in and of itself is one of the absolute most difficult and most prestigious things that you could possibly achieve in all of wrestling. If there was like a quote unquote triple crown, I think that this is an achievement that has to kind of like be included in that. Like the original idea of the G1 wasn't so much so about like who gets to be champion or fight for a title. It was who is the best wrestler in the world. And that's kind of the idea behind this Grand Prix, round robin style tournament. So, the titles are important. They tell you a lot, but like ultimately whoever wins this whole shebang, like you're talking about like a wrestler of the year candidate. You're talking about like someone who's getting the rocket strapped to them. And that's what I always love about this tournament every year.
Nice. Yeah, that's a great point you bring up there because, the briefcase always wasn't a thing. And so I think that started, 2007? Around that time period is when the briefcase started, or maybe a little bit later than that?
It's more modern.
Yeah, so it's definitely a more modern thing. And so, yeah, it's definitely, there's more precision just overall winning the tournament. Obviously, main eventing Wrestle Kingdom and getting a title shot is a big deal as well. So now let's start talking about these blocks. So we'll start with the A block. We'll go through each participant, and then I know Crystal pepper in some stats, and then we'll also kind of talk about the chances of some of these guys of winning, and maybe some matches that we're looking forward for these guys. So we're going to start with the A block, and we're going to start with the Golden Star, Kota Ibushi. This is his 6th entry, 4th consecutive, and he was last year's G1 Climax winner.
And Jeremy, before we delve into that, do you want to just give us a quick rundown of everyone that's in that block real quick before we start talking about Kota Ibushi?
Yeah, so we got Kota Ibushi, Jeff Cobb, Kazuchika Okada, Tomohiro Ishii, Will Ospreay, the Dragon Shingo Takagi, the King Minoru Suzuki, Taichi, Switchblade Jay White, and the Tokyo Pimp Yujiro Takahashi.
Nice.
Is this the best block we've ever seen G1, like on paper? I mean, obviously they've got to produce, they've got to have the output too. But I mean, when you guys saw this block, did you have thoughts of like, have we had like this much quality in one block ever before?
I mean, Go ahead, Jess.
This is the best block in the history of the G1 on paper. Now, given the pandemic, environment, I don't know what it's going to actually end up producing. Obviously, it's going to be fantastic regardless. But with that being said, on paper, with how many tested and tried and true matchups that we have here that we just know are like all-time classic, combinations, and then how many first-time matchups that we've never seen. Aside from like two guys, you're talking about some of the greatest MVPs in the history of this tournament all in the same block. Like, it's really outstanding.
Which two?
Well, I would probably say, and maybe you could even say three, I suppose. Obviously, I would say Taichi, Yujiro, and maybe Jeff Cobb are maybe not at the same level as most of the other competitors that are in this block.
Sure. I think this Taichi being in this block means we're going to get good Taichi.
We are.
So, and I don't know that good Taichi is at the level of Ibushi, Okada, Ishii, Takagi, like Ospreay even. So I hear you, but getting good Taichi kind of bumps him up a level for me. And I think, really the only matches that I'm not looking forward to each night are the Yujiro matches, but you know that one of them is going to be a banger. Like, he's going to have one, and you're going to be like, what just happened? It's probably going to be with someone that you don't expect to.
It'll probably end up being the Okada match since they've wrestled so much and they've all been horrible. And so this will be the one time where they actually go out and like have a banger. And it's like, why can't y'all do this the whole time?
Well, it's funny because I listened to Voice of Wrestling this past weekend, and they brought up, Will Ospreay and how he's such an incredible tournament, competitor, and he carries guys and brings them up to his level. And we have seen, him carry other people to some of their best matches like Doki and, different people like that. But honestly, for me, the one name that sticks out, and it's someone that we already know, like, to me, he's just consistently always the best G1 competitor. It's Ishii. And I'm like, Ishii, there's no way Ishii and Yujiro are going to have a bad match. It's just not going to happen. Like, I'm not saying that will be Yujiro's best match, but if I was betting money, that would probably be my pick.
What's the last bad Ishii singles match, really?
I can't think of one.
When Kenta was unconscious, like that had, and even
that was still good.
Was still pretty good.
Yeah. I still like that match. I know a lot of people
match was great.
Yeah, hated on that match and were kind of down on Kenta, but I thought that match was still awesome.
Yeah, and I don't want you guys to think what I'm saying is that we're going to get bad matches out of Taichi or Jeff Cobb or anything of that nature. But when you look at Ibushi, Okada, Ospreay, Shingo, Suzuki, and then even Jay White, you're talking about like the elite of the company. And then, a couple guys are maybe just a tier beneath it. Like, this is an incredible block. Like, we're going to get just fireworks. It's insane.
Definitely. So yeah, let's start talking about these guys. So Kota Ibushi, we mentioned 6th entry, 4th consecutive, 2019 G1 Climax winner. How are you guys feeling about Kota Ibushi's chances of winning the A block?
I think he's in the mix because he's in that tier and he's won a G1 and he's been in 2 finals in a row now. I think that may work against him in a way because I think he's got a target on his back because he's been the guy. And it's clear that he's trying to move out of he's trying to be done with the tag team division situation that he's been in. And it's time for him to refocus on the singles matches. But I wonder if that's going to, come into play, that he hasn't been focused as a singles wrestler for the past 9 months.
Well, a couple things that we have to take into consideration, obviously, just major talking points that I think apply to everybody. Number one, like you mentioned, Jeremy, we're really late in the year for a G1. Like, there's never been a G1 that happened this late and this close to a Wrestle Kingdom. And we don't know what Wrestle Kingdom is going to look like. So it's really hard to tell. Typically you have your certain archetypes of what you're looking for as far as like how someone might book, say, a Wrestle Kingdom and what the winner of this tournament looks like coming out of that. But because we don't know what the capacity of the building that they're going to run January 4th even looks like, and for instance, hypothetically, if they end up running a show that ends up being not full capacity, maybe not even in the Tokyo Dome, do you give away a protected big money-making match that could sell at a Tokyo Dome on a year when you can't actually do that? And then plus with the time constraints too, one thing is the like you mentioned, the briefcase. Could hypothetically this be a year where the briefcase comes into play? Because historically, no one that's ever won the G1 has ever lost their opportunity to headline Wrestle Kingdom. So these are all like things that are kind of looming. For Kota Ibushi, number one, I would say, I know I mentioned that Ishii is like my MVP, but Kota Ibushi and him are like 1A, 1B for the past couple years at least. And so I know he's going to have a phenomenal tournament. As far as winning it, because of all those circumstances I mentioned, he could win it, but I would say he's probably not going to, because my thing is, if you're going to have Kota Ibushi go back to back, but and he was a finalist the year prior, he didn't win, and then the second year he won and he lost in the Tokyo Dome, then it hasn't felt like they're doing a redemption story. Maybe they are. Maybe he hasn't had such a hot 2020 and this is his redemption. But if they're going to do that, he has to win in the Tokyo Dome. And then after that, they kind of have to go with him for some period of time. And it doesn't feel like they're prepared to really do that. The other thing too is him and Naito, they haven't wrestled very recently, but they like historically to do a very protected main event for Wrestle Kingdom that hasn't happened within usually 2 years. And these guys were just wrestling last year in a 4-match series. They've been, that's really not that long ago. So it makes it hard for me to believe that Ibushi and Naito, although I think they could draw, I don't think that's the match they're going to go with, honestly. So I don't put his chances super high, but I don't know. It's probably like 4 or 5 to 1, something like that.
Yeah, you guys brought some great points there. And yeah, I do think Kota Ibushi's chances are very slim for winning the block and winning the whole tournament for all the reasons you guys mentioned. The interesting thing, you look at Ibushi's year and, starting at Wrestle Kingdom, just kind of this downward spiral, losing both nights at the Dome. And he was kind of on this losing streak kind of after that. And that's when the team with Tanahashi started and, the quest for the tag team titles. And we saw kind of pre-pandemic, Tanahashi was kind of the star of that team and was kind of carrying that team. And then when they came back from the pandemic, things kind of flip-flop, and Ibushi was kind of the star of the team, and Tanahashi was the one that continued to get pinned. And so, like you mentioned, Chris, you got to wonder, since he's been so focused on tag team wrestling, how is that going to translate now into singles, where we saw him in singles action. He was kind of on this losing role and kind of had bad momentum. But the interesting thing, Josh, you brought up a redemption arc with Ibushi. His first 2 matches are against the 2 guys he lost to at the Tokyo Dome. The first night he has Kazuchika Okada, and then the second A block night he has Jay White. So there's a chance, like if you want to do a redemption story, he can beat the 2 guys he lost to back to back in the first 2 matches of the block.
I think that would reestablish him as a player, and I think that's maybe a smart move, but I think that just puts him in the conversation as the tournament goes on, and then I think we potentially see a couple upsets later on down the line. So I think, Ibushi's one of my favorite wrestlers. I love watching him. I would love for New Japan to go with him, but I don't think that right now is the time to do that. So like I think we're all kind of aligned there in that sense. We're like he's always in the mix because he's a top guy. He's a believable champion. But I think to give someone like that, or for someone like that to win 2 G1s in a row and even to be in 3 finals it's unprecedented, and it would be really surprising.
Yeah, it's unlikely just because of the magnitude of the tournament and what history tells us. One final talking point. After the feud with Dangerous Tekkers, Kota Ibushi and Tanahashi were talking about moving on to singles, and then obviously the G1's here, so of course they have to focus on singles. But I don't think the story with them and Dangerous Tekkers is just quite done. And I don't think the story, whatever it may end up being between him and Tanahashi, is done, because on October 16th, the final night of A Block, he is wrestling Taichi, which doesn't scream to me, potential A Block determinant match. But it does sound like a continuation of whatever the feud was that they had prior to this tournament starting. And also on the 17th, Tanahashi is fighting Zack Sabre Jr.
So yeah, definitely some breadcrumbs there and potential for this Dangerous Tekkers Golden Aces feud to continue post G1. So out of all the guys in this A block, who are you guys most looking forward to seeing Ibushi wrestle? If you had to just pick one guy, like what's the one matchup of Ibushi's that you're really looking forward to?
Well, he's got 2 first-time matchups. One of them is a dream match. So,
and this could be all of our choice.
and one of them is Jeff Cobb, which is also great. Don't get me wrong, by any means. I think Cobb and Ibushi might have great chemistry, but we're getting Kota Ibushi and Shingo Takagi in a singles match, and I cannot wait to see what those 2 guys can put together. That's my match of the tournament, like circled and starred, and I will be most excited for that match.
Nice. Mark.
Young boy, you going the same?
That's got to be it for me. I mean, Ibushi and Ishii was our strong style fight of the year 2 years ago, so you can't deny the magnitude of seeing them wrestle again. And I think right now Ibushi and Okada is my match of the year. So, I mean, that's, outstanding. But, dude, him and Shingo never happened, which is kind of crazy with, like, Kota Ibushi's freelance situation in the past. But, Shingo spent all those years in Dragon Gate. They're so exclusionary. Like, it's never happened. And it's like they're both on fire. This is the time. Like, Ibushi shows up during G1. Shingo's always on. Like, I can't wait, man. Like, that might end up being a match of the year contender. Someone asked us a few weeks ago, do we think anyone's getting like 5 stars in this pandemic, era? And I said, I thought it was going to be really hard, but that might be able to do it, honestly.
Yeah, I'm right there with you guys. I'm definitely, salivating over this Shingo Ibushi matchup. It's going to be hard hitting. It's going to be fast paced. There's going to be a lot of crazy spots, and it's just going to be an overall awesome matchup. But also, kind of like you, Josh, Okada is another one I have circled. Obviously, they had a great match in the G1 last year. They had an excellent, match of the year, probably the match of the year for this year at the Tokyo Dome on January 4th. So we've seen the magic these guys can do. So, a third matchup here in the G1 setting again, like that's going to be probably another incredible matchup.
I love that they've had this kind of Okada and Ibushi have had this kind of classic new trilogy this year. So G1 block finals, Wrestle Kingdom, G1 night 1. Like it's very much what they did with Naito and Omega. Not necessarily Wrestle Kingdom, but going back to it with the first night of a block. So that's really, I think that's cool. I think it's going to set us off to have a great G1. It really is going to set the tone that this is New Japan is back in earnest and for real. And they're going to remind everyone that this is the world class of singles heavyweight wrestling.
Yeah.
So any final thoughts on the Golden Star?
No, I think we did it. Let's move on to Jeff Cobb.
Yeah, Jeff Cobb, second entry, second consecutive time in the G1 Climax. Interesting thing, it might seem like there's some rumors that Jeff Cobb might be signed to NJPW. Typically when they have ROH guys in New Japan, they normally have like the ROH logo next to their name in the graphics, and he had the lion mark next to his name. And we do know, based off of interviews, he said there was a place that he signed, and he was waiting for that place to announce that he was signed. So it's seeming very likely that he is under full-time contract. And I mentioned that because as a full-time contracted guy, I think that kind of helps him out being full-time versus being an ROH outsider guy.
You would think. It didn't help Elgin that much, though. Jeff Cobb, outstanding talent, super athletic, strong, very charismatic. But This is his second G1. I was less than really impressed with his previous G1. In fact, I'll tell you the truth. And this isn't really to diminish him in any way, but like a lot of times the idea of Jeff Cobb on paper ends up being more appealing to me than what we actually see presented, when the matches come to play. Like, I couldn't tell you a single Jeff Cobb match personally that I really remember from last year's G1 that impressed me. There might have been some, but nothing really comes to mind. But given the block that's here, and there's so many guys I think he's never worked with really in a singles capacity, I think he's going to grow a lot from it, but also he's probably going to end up having some of those matches that we have yet to kind of see from him in New Japan. And like you mentioned, Jeremy, if he is signed, then all bets are off. This might be his time to shine. As far as like winning, I think he's one of the two least likely competitors in this block to even go to a final. Like, I can't even see him making a block final, but I think he'll have a strong showing. I don't know, 2-3 wins, maybe 4. But maybe he can get like a never title shot or a British title shot out of this and kind of catapult him into something like that afterwards.
Yeah, so Cobb's got 3 first-time matchups. It's Ibushi, Okada, and Yujiro. So I'm excited to see what he can do with Ibushi and Okada. Certainly, he'll have rematches with Shingo, Taichi, Suzuki, Ospreay, and Jay White. I believe all of those, except for Ospreay and Suzuki. So just 2 of them were last year's G1. So I have a question, I guess. So Cobb had 8 points last year. Over under 8 points this year.
Under.
You think he regresses?
It might be a push, though. This is a much tougher block that he's in this year than he was last year.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm going to say he's going to stay flat. I can see him getting 8 points again.
So he doesn't have a win over. He's 0-3 against Ishii. He beat Shingo last year. 1-1 with Taichi. 0-1 with Suzuki, and he beat Will Ospreay in MSG. Yeah.
Let me ask you, Chris, when you say 1-1 with Suzuki, are those New Japan matches, or are you
Sorry,
counting...
0-1 with Suzuki, 1-1 with Taichi.
Okay. Those, because they've had other matches outside of New Japan, so you're just giving the New Japan stats at this point, right?
I thought I had everything, but I may be wrong.
Because I know that they wrestled in OTT, and then I know we watched them wrestle at like WrestleCon the same year.
Okay, then I just don't have those in my records. Singles?
No, yeah, they were both singles matches. Like, we watched that, right, Jeremy?
Yeah, that was Rev Pro New Orleans 2018. Cobb, yeah, Suzuki won with a choke on Cobb.
Yeah,
Right
I'm pretty sure Suzuki beat him both times. I think he beat him in Rev Pro, and I think he beat him at Scrappermania. Yeah. But I don't even know if you would count those in the canon of this, is kind of the reason I was asking, because I don't know if...
Yeah, because all I've got is the Rev Pro.
Yeah. Okay. No worries.
Which was WrestleCon, but I don't have anything else.
Maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe they didn't have the rematch at OTT that I don't remember. But either way, that Suzuki and Jeff Cobb match was very good. And I actually think it might be, to my recollection, the best Cobb singles match that he's had with any of these guys.
The Ospreay match was really good at the Garden too.
Oh yeah, it was.
It was a good sprint. So I mean, he's got it in him, and this will be a good block for Cobb. So I think we've seen it, and we've seen it with some of these guys too. So, but I don't think Cobb's gonna win anything. But if I had to put money on it, I'd give him 8 points again. I don't know where they come from necessarily, but I think that I mean, it's tough, right? Like, I mean, maybe Suzuki, because that could set him up with a never situation. I mean, obviously you've got Yujiro, so that's a free 2.
I think he could beat Taichi.
He could beat Taichi, yeah. And I'd have to look at where that's going to land and if it's going to goof things up for what they're looking at. But I don't think I don't know. I don't think he takes out Osprey unless they want him to do a Rev Pro match too.
But that's the thing. Like, I think Cobb is the kind of utility guy where honestly, he has enough credibility. I personally think he could beat anybody in this block, but he's just not going to consistently beat everybody in the block. That's the problem. I think he could beat. I mean, the one guy who's kind of hard for me to believe is maybe Okada. Is like the one guy, but I could see him beating Shingo. Why not? Jay White. Why not? One night just to kind of even things up. Like, I think Jeff Cobb is kind of a crapshoot when you're actually making your brackets because you can kind of place him however you actually need to, and that makes him unpredictable in my book.
He did beat Shingo last year, so that's got to come into play here somehow.
Yeah, and I agree with you guys. I don't think he has any chance of winning this block or getting close. Like I agree with you, Chris. I think he's going to be in that 8-point range again. And I think he's going to produce really well. I mean, in this A block, he's going to be against some tough guys and some really great wrestlers. I think we're going to see probably Cobb's best G1 this year. So is there one match that you guys think is going to be his best match or the one you're really looking forward to?
I think for me, the match I'm looking most forward to for him, I know there's anticipation for the new matches, but I've got to say probably Suzuki, just because Suzuki's a master, and Jeff Cobb is kind of a hybrid. A lot of people see him, they think he's going to be like this bruiser, kind of like strong style type of guy, and he really isn't. Like, he's almost like a hybrid indie athletic type. But his style meshes really well with Suzuki. We've seen it in the past, and I'm excited to kind of see, the simple story, but also yet violent that they end up producing together. Plus, I think that he might be a good candidate for that Never division. So I think that that's one to kind of really look out for. Plus, Suzuki, if he likes you, I don't know if he does, but if he likes you, he'll go out of his way to try and make you.
I mean, you kind of can't go wrong. Cobb's a good hand, right? But I think New Japan sees him as something more than that. He's the Haas foreigner, right? And they had to get that in this G1, and he's the guy. And I think what happens with Cobb over this tournament is going to be really telling for where he stands with New Japan. So, I think the match with Suzuki is probably the one that I've got targeted for something to watch, but also Ishii. They've had some good matches in the past, and I think that that's something to look out for too. That may be his comfort zone of like when he can really show up and have a banger.
For me, I got the Will Ospreay match circled. I really enjoyed their opener from Madison Square Garden. Seeing that match live, I thought it was a great matchup, and those guys can kind of have that almost PWG / indie style matchup on the card.
Maybe. We're not there yet, but we don't even know what we're getting with Will Ospreay this year.
Right, but I mean, I still think that matchup. They had a great matchup before. I think that could end up probably being one of Cobb's best matches of the tournament.
Nice.
So now we're going to move on to the Rainmaker, Kazuchika Okada, with his 9th entry, 9th consecutive 2012 and 2014 G1 winner. So what are we thinking about the chances for the Rainmaker here?
I think that there is a very good likelihood that Okada wins this. I think Okada's going to, I don't know if he's going to be in the quote unquote block final determinant match, but he's going to be alive in my book on the final day. That's just historically what they typically do with him since, say, 2012. And he may even be in the actual final itself. And there's a good possibility he wins this. Some of the reasons why, I know some people probably are not, a big fan of it. They're probably saying like, hey, we just saw Naito and him last year. But if in fact we find out that they can't do a full capacity Tokyo Dome type style show, this is still one of the biggest domestic matches that they could possibly do. And we saw that evidenced last year. It was a fantastic match, and it would be the fourth, Wrestle Kingdom that Okada and Naito ended up doing together. but it would be a different dynamic because Naito would be going in as the defending champion and Okada's the challenger. So there'd kind of be a different, sort of thing going on there. I think Okada has a really, really good chance at winning this thing. Plus, I don't know, it's Okada. What else do you do with him if he's not fighting for the title or, defending the title? Then he's in a KOPW tournament and things are just fucked, or he's carrying balloons around. I don't know.
He's going to go get a Little League trophy. Okay, hear me out. And he's going to tape a ring to the top of it, a wrestling ring. And he's going to spray paint it gold. And he's going to come up with a goofy thing, but he's going to have a press conference about it. And then he's going to lose to Toru Yano. That's what he's going to do. Okada he's only won 2 G1s, and it's been a while, right? And it's been a while since Okada had his G1 moment, right? He's been literally just been the champ forever.
Yeah.
So, but Okada still he has the second highest winning percentage of any G1 competitor who's participated in more than 20 matches, even though he's only won. He's won 2, but it's been so long since he's been victorious. So he's always in the mix. He's going to be in the mix again. On the last night, he's got Will Ospreay. So if you jump to the end of the schedule and you see what those cards look like, Will Ospreay, we don't really know what we're working with, kind of like you mentioned, Josh. We don't really know what we're working with Will Ospreay, so we don't really know how New Japan sees Will Ospreay right now, especially as he's truly in the heavyweight division now. He's not going to come into this tournament like he did last year as the junior heavyweight champion. So, kind of hard to tell exactly where we're headed with Okada, knowing that Ospreay's his last matchup. So, but he's got to be in the mix. And it wouldn't surprise me to see him win. I don't love the idea of them bouncing right back to Okada and Naito, but it's the biggest match they can do. And I'm assuming by the end of this tournament, they've got a pretty good idea of how many people and how many tickets they're going to be able to sell. If they're running the Dome on the 4th, I assume they'll also announce that during this tour.
Yeah, it's been really, really weird. We haven't really had much announcements about what January 4th is going to look like. But I agree with you. I think even if they don't 100% know what it's going to look like, you can't go wrong with booking Okada and Naito, whether you can do a bigger audience or not. And like you mentioned, Josh, the story is going to be a little bit different this time with Naito going in as the champion and Okada coming in as the challenger. So it's a whole kind of different perspective and twist to that whole story right there. So it's, even though it's obviously a matchup we've seen several times and we saw it last year, it's still kind of a fresh perspective and still a big drawing match. And so whether or not you know or don't know what you can do, it's kind of a safe bet to go with, especially if you don't want to blow off a big protected match. You don't want to do, Naito versus somebody else that he hasn't faced yet. So
allow me to put on my Chris Samsa hat for one moment. I have a stat that I just did research on via Wikipedia. Since 2012, every single G1 Climax that Okada's been in where he wasn't the champion, he's won except for in 2018, which was the year that Tanahashi beat Ibushi.
Right.
And that was the year where he was broken and carrying red balloons and had red hair. So we don't really have that version of him. I don't know. I know people don't like to hear this sort of thing, but sometimes New Japan, as unpredictable as this tournament is, the most predictable thing they could possibly do is have Okada just win it. And for business, that might make the most bottom line sense.
Right. And he's still the ace of the company. And like you mentioned, Chris, hasn't won it since 2014. That's a 6-year drought of him, winning or having some really big G1 moments. So as a guy who's still, he's 32, still young, still the face of your company, he could easily, win this and kind of catapult him back up to kind of the top dog there.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's coming in cold, but that's a tried and true story with the G1. The winner almost always comes in cold, and I think I think if Okada loses to Ibushi on night 1, he's winning the tournament.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I think they need to rehab Ibushi a little bit, but not too much. So, but yeah, so that's the match I'll be looking out for in a sense of determining the winner of the tournament. Now, if Okada wins, I'm not really sure. I'm not sure where we're headed. What do you guys think of the prospect of doing Okada and Naito as the G1 final?
That is very interesting.
Oh,
and I know, typically they don't end up doing. Typically, the champion doesn't ever win, and also, they wouldn't want to do. Look, last year was kind of the first year in a while we saw where the champion and the winner were in the same block and ended up facing off again in the Tokyo Dome because they were doing the whole double gold dash thing. And so it would be very interesting if they ended up doing it at the G1 finals and then end up running it back at the Dome again. I think the chances for that are slim, but it could happen.
Imagine them running that match twice on one day's notice. Right. It seems wild, but it's also it's intriguing. I would love it. But for business, I'm not sure that that's the most sensible thing to do because G1 final is going to sell out.
I would agree with you, but then like you just mentioned, it's going to sell out. So maybe that's not a bad place to potentially do it. You know what I mean? Like 2020 is just a screwy year. Like we don't really know what Gato's actually thinking given the circumstances. So that's hard to say. The one thing I think is really important to look out for here at the end of it all, Okada's got Ospreay on the final night, and Ospreay has never defeated Kazuchika Okada in singles action. So there's a story there, and I don't know, what that really entails, if that means, good things for Ospreay or if that's a sure sign that Okada is going to, have basically essentially a bye in the final night. I don't know.
Yeah, and he's 0-4, and that's been a story that they've told that Ospreay can't get over that hump. So curious what that looks like. I don't think this is the time to do that big win for Ospreay in that position, but I also you can't ever rule out the last night being a draw and someone dastardly sneaking in
yeah.
At the end, and his name is Jay White.
That is exactly a scenario me and Jeremy off the air have discussed. I was like, the thing with Okada, he has probably the longest matches most of the time because he is in main events on a lot of the evenings of the G1 just traditionally. And so if anyone is going to have, a draw, he's the most likely of anyone in the tournament. And what a way if they did go that way with him and Ospreay. Like Ospreay doesn't beat him, but he pushes him to his limit on the final night. They tie, and that creates a bye for somebody else. That's a very feasible booking scenario. In fact, I think we're giving ideas probably to a lot of listeners right now.
Yeah, Okada's got 4 main events scheduled, and then obviously the last night here is not. We don't have card order just yet, so the only person with more main events throughout the whole tournament is Naito with 5.
Which makes sense as the double champion.
As the champ, yeah.
Yeah. So what's the match you guys got circled for Okada you're looking forward to?
Oh, Shingo.
Shocker. I'll go with Ibushi just because I think it's going to be so meaningful for the tournament. I love where they've placed each match in their current trilogy, and those guys. They're my 2 favorite matches over the last calendar year have been those 2 guys. I think.
Yeah, also, Shingo is always an easy answer to say, but just to mix it up, I'm also looking forward to the Minoru Suzuki rematch. We've seen them have some great matchups. Last year they had the Royal Quest match, the main event for the IWGP title. I really loved that match, and they had the epic match in the rain for Suzuki's anniversary show, which was great. Really enjoyed that, and so these guys just have great chemistry, and Suzuki's the tough man match for Okada, and always pushes Okada to the brink, and so looking forward to when these guys clash.
You got to figure Suzuki's a candidate for a draw too, because that's part of their story.
Right.
Their kind of long-term story. They've had 2 time limit draws at 30 minutes. So, I mean, if you're looking for opportunities for draws, they don't do them very often, and when they do, it ends up being relatively meaningful. But Suzuki and Okada, their matches go long. I mean, that's just part of their history.
Yeah.
Suzuki is also somebody that could hypothetically beat Okada.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially with Okada. I know he's got an aura about him, and he's going to probably win, I don't know, 7 matches, 6 or 7, most likely. But he's not the champion, so you don't have that automatic title shot scenario going necessarily. So, I mean, it kind of opens the field up for potential losses more so than other years.
Yeah. So, any final thoughts on the Rainmaker?
Nah, let's talk about the Stone Pitbull.
Yeah.
Pitbull.
Yeah, the
Pitball.
Stone Pitball.
He is a ball. So yeah, the Stone Pitbull. I'm saying it. Stone Pitbull. Tomohiro Ishii, eighth entry, 8th consecutive entry. He is 1/3 of the never openweight 6-man champions. So how we feeling about Ishii? 8th tournament. Does he have a shot of winning the A block?
I don't know, but he's the G1 MVP of this era, right? I mean, like, who has better G1 matches consistently and steadily than Tomohiro Ishii? I mean, like, what a boss, and he can take some losses, whatever. Like, he's not winning this tournament, he's not winning this block, but damn, I'm gonna watch every single match he has, except I might skip the Yujiro one.
Ishii, like, the big thing to look out for here is, like, when he does take losses, that might open up never open weight 6-man tag team title opportunities for people. I mean, that's a big deal. So you just never know. Will Ospreay might come for those 6-mans. But in all seriousness, Ishii, it's hard because, my heart is with Tomohiro Ishii. He's one of my all-time favorite guys, but I also am realistic about the fact that he's not winning this thing. However, he's another person that, like, he always gets big wins in these tournaments. So, like, he's gonna beat some of these top names for sure because he always does every single year. But he's also gonna take multiple losses. Like, I probably see him in a tough block like this only winning like 4, maybe 5 at most. Like, I'm going to cap it at 5. But like Chris said, like, he put it perfect. Like, he is usually the MVP. And so regardless of wins or losses, like, he's going to be the guy in this tournament most likely. And, like, he hasn't shown any signs of slowing down this year at all.
Ishii had, he went 4-5 last year. So you got to figure he stays in that range. He has 1 first-time match. Y'all want to guess who it is?
It's Yujiro.
Yeah, Yujiro.
No,
it's not.
It's Will Ospreay.
It's Will Ospreay.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's never faced Ospreay.
Which seems wild because, like, you see him in the ring together a lot, right? In Chaos Multi-Mans, but yeah, they've never faced off in a 1-on-1. So that'll be a fun one. I think that's one to circle just to see what Will brings to the table in an Ishii match.
Yeah, since we're on the subject, I can save us some time and tell you right now, that is my most anticipated Ishii match. It has been since I saw the block open up. Obviously, there's so many people that we know Ishii produces fireworks with, but him and Will is going to be just insane mental. So, like, yeah. Jeremy?
Yeah. I'm also looking forward to that Will Ospreay match. That's just going to be absolutely incredible, especially if we're getting a more bruiser heavyweight style Ospreay. And like I mentioned, Suzuki being like Okada's real man match, this could end up being like a real man match for Ospreay with Ishii just bruising him with the forearms and the headbutts and all that stuff. And I think the big thing for Ishii in this year's tournament in this block is looking out for his matches against the champions. Like, I think he could beat Suzuki to set up a never title match for Power Struggle. I think the Ospreay match, he could beat Will Ospreay. Ishii's is a former Rev Pro British champion, and so I think he could beat Ospreay, and then that could set up a Rev Pro British title match at Power Struggle.
Yeah, let's do it.
So yeah, so that's definitely what I'm looking forward to there. So any other thoughts on Ishii?
Can't wait.
Unfuckable with.
All right, well, let's move on then to the guy that we just mentioned that we're looking forward to seeing him wrestle, the aerial assassin, Will Ospreay, with his second consecutive tournament. Do have a question here from Reddit user Viking Pain. It says there's a lot of heat on New Japan for including Will Ospreay in the G1 from fans on social media. Now, we all know Ospreay is one of the best wrestlers in the world, but the hashtag MeToo stuff has really put him in bad light. Do you guys think it would have been better for New Japan to have excluded him this year and gave his spot to someone else like Kojima? So, Chris, we've kind of talked about the Ospreay stuff. What are your opinions on Ospreay being involved in the tournament?
I mean, I think if they were going to keep working with him long term, they were going to put him in the tournament. So I think that's the decision that New Japan has clearly made. Whether they've looked deep into the allegations against him, I don't know. I'm not privy to that information by any means, but he's a really good wrestler. He's someone that they've clearly wanted to invest in, and I think that time will tell. Time will tell if this is derailing for him, if he's going to end up being one of those guys that never gets over the hump, and if this was a part of it, or if they just roll with it, and maybe they have done their own internal investigation. I don't think a company like New Japan is going to be a company that goes super public with what their findings. That doesn't seem to be how they operate. So I'm gonna go ahead and trust that it's on their radar. I don't even have to trust that. I know that based on conversations I've had with people over there. Like they know what's happening to some extent. I don't know that they understand the gravity of it, just because culturally it's such a different it's a different world. It's a different culture. So I don't know that it translates, to be perfectly honest. So I don't know. I'm going to keep talking about his matches. I'm going to keep analyzing how he operates in the ring. And I'm not surprised to see him included in this.
Yeah. And kind of similar take to you. We're still going to cover his matches and cover everything he does in ring. If we get any more updates on kind of the other stuff, we'll cover that too, and hopefully, if more is to come, New Japan takes some kind of action.
I just don't like that Jeremy says we, as if I've already agreed to this. I'm actually going to be abstaining from covering any Will Ospreay going forward until his name gets cleared. So,
Badunch.
Well, it's got awkward.
No, I'm just playing. But yeah, as far as Ospreay in the tournament, I mean, I think the big thing here is he's like 265 pounds right now, which is just insane. I haven't seen his two recent matches in Rev Pro, which were taped, I guess, very recently. So I don't really know what to expect here. Like, I don't know if we're getting big boy Bill, who's just like jacked but still as like fluid
big
as ever.
Boy Bill. You just called him Big Boy Bill.
Yeah, I made that up on the spot. Like, I don't know if we're getting like Uber Ospreay, and he's still gonna be as fluid and agile and high flying as he ever was, or if like all this time away from the sport has like made him adjust things, and like suddenly he's going to be like, I don't know, wrestling King's Road style or some shit. Like, I don't know I don't even know what this is, like, to be honest with you. the thing that's undeniable is every facet of pro wrestling that Will Ospreay has ever like attempted or shown us, he's more than adept. Like, he's world class. He's one of the greatest talents of a generation, maybe of all time. So I'm excited. And the other thing too is what I mentioned earlier, the fact that he is wrestling Okada on the final night. I think that is a key indicator that not only is he going to do well in this tournament, but I think he's going to be alive at the end. I don't see him in this plucky underdog role as like the way he came in last year as the junior champion, who was just kind of there to give people great performances and, you know, have a strong showing, but ultimately eat losses. That's not what's happening here, I don't think, personally. I don't know that he's winning it, but if they really wanted to, like, you know, everyone was like, well, this year was a great time for them to really try something new with Evil because of the situation, the circumstances, and then they went with Evil. You can make that same argument with Will Ospreay right now. If there was ever a time that you wanted to just try and go with him, here's one thing. Look at all the competitors that are in this block. How many of them have wrestled Naito in the last 18 months? Almost all of them, except Will Ospreay. If there was a big match that you wanted to do at the Tokyo Dome that would draw, that has never been done before, it is him and Will Ospreay. And if there's someone that you wanted to give the push to, a la Kenny Omega, it is him. You could really make a big star, money-making star out of him right now if you want to do it. I'm not saying they're going to do that, but him and Okada on the final night tells me it's a little bit more than just a redemption storyline or something. He's going to be alive on that final night. I really think that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I think that Okada Ospreay match is definitely kind of big indicator. It's definitely somehow that's going to play into who's winning the A block, whether that's maybe the Ospreay win ends up spoiling Okada, or Okada ends up beating him to knock him out, or they go to the draw that pushes somebody through. That match is definitely going to be an indicator for who's going to win the A block.
If I had to bet, I would say that's probably going to be the last match of the night with various. This is a block that you know you're going to have various scenarios popping up. So I mean, we're all going to have to wait to see what Will Ospreay is going to be in this tournament, at least past night one, because night one he's going to mess around with Yujiro. So, but his second match is Ishii. So that'll be telling to see if we were getting big boy Billy.
I also think, you know, in the past couple of years, we've had the MVPs have always been Ibushi and Ishii. I do think that Will, as a heavyweight, is going to give them a big run for their money in this block this year.
And something else I want to point out that you mentioned, Josh, you know, you talked about, you know, Ospreay wrestling different styles and, you know, being great at other stuff besides just the high flying. I think we saw, you know, a lot of that with his feud with Zack Sabre recently and being able to wrestle that technical and mat style. And so I think we might see some more of that kind of sprinkled in this kind of new heavyweight style on top of maybe some flips, maybe not as crazy flips as before, but I still think there'll be some kind of flippy-do from him.
I hope he throws like mad strikes like never before, like just like elbows, knees, and like headbutts, and just like goes ham.
So last year's G1, 13 wrestlers had 8 points. Will Ospreay was one of them. Is he one of the guys that gets to advance past that? I guess over 500 this year.
Yeah,
I would say yeah. I would take the over on that.
Yeah, I think he at least gets to 10.
I'm not anticipating that anyone in the B block actually wins this tournament personally. Just historically, that's I know last year that happened, and or whatever block the champion is, and usually the winner does not come from that block. It happened last year, which was unlikely, but historically it doesn't usually happen. So I'm anticipating an A block person win, but if someone did win in B block, I could still even see Ospreay going to a final and then maybe even potentially quote unquote losing. Like that also could make sense to me. I'm not anticipating it, but that's a scenario that does exist.
Yeah.
That's one of those things I like to throw out there is that anyone can win a block, right? Like there's not a ton of long-term repercussions for somebody winning a block. You don't You don't advance to anything. You're not owed anything for winning the block and then losing in the final. So if they want to make Will a star, right? If that's someone they want to strap the rocket to, he could definitely win the block, and that would be accomplished. And still, you don't have to necessarily put him in the main event at the Tokyo Dome just yet, because they're probably not ready for that.
Well, there is one thing, and this is generalization. I know this isn't as like official as like some of the stats you throw out there, Chris. But one thing me and Jeremy have noticed, and I throw it out there almost every year, usually the runner-up in the G1 almost always wins a secondary title at Wrestle Kingdom. Almost always. So they do kind of get a push afterwards, regardless.
That's fascinating. I'm gonna pull a bunch of data on that when we get off this, because I'm super curious about it. So
it's something awesome. It's something that I like noticed on my own. I've never like published it, but like Jeremy, I've mentioned that on the air like many times, right?
Yeah, definitely. Every time G1 season comes around, you mention that stat, and you know, with him as the Rev Pro champion, I don't know if that will count of him having like a big defense against somebody, or does he end up potentially, you know, get back in that never mix? You know, he was the never champion last year. You do like him and Suzuki again, like he beat Suzuki and then somehow gets the match Suzuki against later. So there's a lot of options they could do there with Ospreay, even if he doesn't win the G1 or this block, and they want to push him.
Yeah.
And so we know there's a ton of great matches here lined up for him, but what's the one that you guys got circled?
Shingo.
The
rematch. I mean, the rematch for Shingo. It's in Kobe World Hall, right? I mean, like that's awesome. It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, you know, Shingo Ospreay was, you know, one of the top matches of the year last year, and so just that epic Best of Super Junior final, and so yeah, having that again, yeah, definitely looking forward to that.
Most of the guys in this block, not all, there's a couple. I think there's one or two first-time matchups, but for the most part, he's already had outstanding matches with the majority of this block, so we kind of know what that entails. But for me, it's still Tomohiro Ishii, just because as great as the Shingo match was, you know, and that was a match of the year, you know, last year, him and Ishii have never wrestled. And so it's like, for me, it's like that forbidden door. It's like, what is behind that door? I got to see it. Like, I cannot wait.
Yeah, that match is going to be great also.
Jeremy, you got one?
I said Shingo.
Oh, my bad. Okay,
yeah,
so
yeah.
2-1. So,
I mean, that match, that Best of Super Juniors final was, I mean, both comically a Best of Super Juniors final, because they're both pretty big boys even at that point. But to see them in a rematch, in a match that, you know, they clearly had good chemistry. Like, yeah, I mean, put that right in my veins. Let's go.
Yeah, and of course, you know, Shingo, he needs to get that win back. You know, he got embarrassed. You know, he cleaned his block out, thought he was gonna, you know, it's waltz right through and, you know, wipe the floor with Ospreay, and it ended up, you know, getting slain by Ospreay. And so, you know,
me and Jeremy, we reviewed every single Super Juniors final for our project this past year, and when we got done, we came to the same conclusion that this is literally the greatest final of all time. I know it was like speculated, but like from our own personal observations, it clearly was. So, you know, I don't doubt you guys, but you know, we got to move on to Shingo. He's next. But Jeremy, you brought up a great talking point. It is a rematch. Gato typically likes to book in tournaments where guys get their wins back, you know. And New Japan's not a 50-50 company, but a lot of times you see instances where someone got beat in a high-profile match. Come G1 season, they usually, unless there's a story going on, they get that win back. So, I mean, Shingo's next, him and Will Ospreay. If he does get that win back, that might be like something to kind of look out for that maybe does knock Ospreay out of contention. I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on Shingo in this tournament?
Yeah, so yeah, Shingo Takagi, second entry, second consecutive, and you know, it's very interesting. They've been trying to do this match again. So New Japan Cup, they were originally scheduled off to face each other in the opening of their bracket. So they've definitely had plans to do this match again. You know, if they face off in New Japan Cup, it wouldn't be happening here in the G1. So for whatever, there's some kind of story that they want to tell with those two guys, and they definitely wanted to have this match again. So they made sure to place them in the same block. And so I definitely think that is a story that you can have, and you can either do the route of Shingo kind of getting revenge and beating Ospreay in a big tournament match, or you do the story of Ospreay having Shingo's number, and Ospreay's like that one guy that Shingo just can't figure out.
I think Shingo's getting his win back. I mean that I can't imagine them booking it any other way. But if they're strapping a rocket to Will, then maybe that's not the case. But I that's not my read on what's happening. I think Will's going to be a player. I think they're going to establish him, but I don't think they're necessarily going to like rocket strap him to the moon. And I think that means he's got to eat some, one or two big losses in big matches. So the thing about the Shingo Ospreay match is that's not even the main event that night. So that's on night 5, September 27th. And the main event that night is Okada and Jay White, which is another match that they've been trying to do. They were booked at the beginning of the original New Japan Cup too. So, and Ospreay and Shingo is sandwiched on the other side by Ibushi and Ishii. So that's a card.
Dude, that night's going to be incredible. Oh my gosh.
Like, what a trio. I mean, before that, you've got Cobb and Suzuki, which is nothing to scoff at, and probably the most interesting Yujiro match against Taichi opening things up. So night 5, September 27th, and I'm sure we're going to talk about like cards to watch for, but like that one, mark your calendars.
Definitely.
Shingo is such an interesting case because before we got the actual cards, Jeremy, you were saying Shingo was like your favorite to win the tournament. But then on the final night, they've got him. Who do they have him facing off against with? Is it it's Minoru Suzuki, right?
Yeah, the final night he has Suzuki.
Which obviously he just dropped the Never title to Suzuki. And that's a very, again, when we talk about rematches, especially high stakes ones, that's a major thing there. Of course, there's no telling how this is all going to get booked out. Could Shingo and Suzuki be a determinate block match? Of course it could possibly, but I think it's unlikely. Shingo last year came into the tournament. He had just graduated to heavyweight, and it was sort of like what you had mentioned, Chris, when you talked about how you see Will Ospreay being like, Shingo was a player last year. He was kind of established, but he wasn't like gonna win it. And then a lot of people anticipated that this year might be a year that maybe they go with him. That would be a big match. Him and Naito, there's history there, LIJ, yada, yada. But then you look at the block that they put him in, and it's like, if they put him in that B block, I would go with Shingo all day. But in the A block, it's really hard. I mean, the matches are phenomenal and outstanding, and I think he's going to do really well. But when I look at who he has to face, and then I look at who he's facing on the last night, I think he'll probably get his win back against Suzuki, but beating Suzuki on the final night, to me, doesn't scream you're getting a G1, you're getting a Wrestle Kingdom. So I think his chances of winning are actually very low, personally. I don't think he's winning. I think he's going to get 4 or 5 big wins, kind of like Ishii, but that's about it. I think that's his place in the tournament. And it's interesting because he's not going to win, but I'm so excited that he's here because I think he has the most first-time matchups of anybody in the block. And I'm just guessing, but
he does.
So I can't wait. But I think that now here's one thing I also threw out to Jeremy when we were talking off the phone. What if he is alive on the last night and Suzuki spoils him? Because hypothetically, that could create enough impetus for him to want to fight Suzuki to get over that hump. That could be a story where he was alive. He got beat again. He can't get past Suzuki. They got to fight at Wrestle Kingdom. That could be a real story.
I mean, I'm looking at the last night card, the last A block night, so October 16th. And so we've got Ibushi versus Taichi, Jeff Cobb versus Yujiro, Shingo versus Suzuki, Ishii versus Jay White, Okada versus Ospreay. I mean, there's 2 guys in there that I think are probably eliminated at that point and just having a match, and that's Cobb and Yujiro.
Yeah.
And the rest of them, I think, are candidates to at least be spoiling each other, have a long shot to get in. a lot of different. I think everyone, all the other 8, I think, are coming into that last night with something to fight for.
So you think it's going to be a very parity-based block?
Listen, I don't doubt that this is one of these blocks that's going to have a 6-way tie at 10, and one guy beat all 5 of the other guys, right? like 2013.
So I haven't even thought of that scenario because I'm not good at math. But now you're throwing it out there. I'm like, yeah, that did happen. Like,
because this is
could easily happen.
Right? It's such a block that you look at and you're like, okay, nobody's gonna tank, right? None of these guys are gonna tank. I mean, Udra, right? But even Cobb, you got to figure is going to get 6, maybe 8, right?
Yeah, I would say 6 minimum.
6 minimum, right? So you've got a chance that everyone else just beats each other up, and you've got to pay attention to who beat the other 4 or 5 guys that are tied at the top, and like they just happen to get those wins and not just wins, right? So I think who is equally important in this block to how many.
I think that's an interesting way to book it. I don't quite see it that way. I think that there's like 3 or 4 people that will be alive on the final night with other people playing spoilers, more traditional style. But I mean, that's exciting to hear that. I mean, that would be very interesting if it goes that way. And I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah, I don't think you can throw any match out the window on that. Except maybe like the Udro match at final night. But like you mentioned, those matches are definitely all could be at play. But I do kind of feel that the Shingo Suzuki match is leading. It's more of a story for a never title rematch than it is that Shingo's going to get to win the A block and get to the finals.
I like the story that I like the idea that Shingo was alive on the final night and Suzuki beat him again, and now he's taking his title and now he's taking his big main event opportunity, and then they just keep feuding via multi-man matches until January comes. I would love that to happen.
Yeah, that would be great.
Shingo's got the same batch of first-time matchups as Jeff Cobb. So Ibushi, Okada, and Takahashi, and Yujiro. So I think the Ibushi-Shingo match is a dream match for sure. I'm curious to see what a Okada-Shingo match looks like because I think they both pace their matches so differently.
Yeah.
So that one I think is equally interesting to the Ibushi match, and then obviously you've got the Ospreay rematch and Ishii for that matter. I mean, those guys are gonna beat the hell out of each other.
Yeah, I think the Okada match is the one that I got circled that I'm really looking forward to. Like you mentioned, yeah, that different style, different pacing. I think we can see something really great there.
They all sound great, but yeah, for me, it's just Okada. We've never seen it before. You're talking about 2 of the best of all time. So yeah, I can't wait.
I'm curious. I know we're not necessarily talking about Okada right now, but this is coming up just because of the style. If Okada's going to stay committed to this submission style,
ooh,
I mean, that may change. I mean, that's going to change how we see his matches too. So, and I think we'll know that early because if he's committed to that with Ibushi, you got to figure it's going to be a thread through the tournament. But
he'll bring Red Ink back.
See, I mean, it's better than the Cobra Clutch.
Yeah.
But that's the thing I'm going to be watching for in the first couple of Okada matches, and then that'll change my excitement for a match with someone like Shingo.
Oh God, what if this dude comes out here and wrestles like he did during the freaking the New Japan era. Cup? I'm not gonna be happy if we get New Japan Cup Okada.
I mean, he hasn't hit a Rainmaker since March.
Right. But maybe that's the story. Like maybe like that Ibushi match, he's going for the money clip. And it's like, because he beat Ibushi to the dome. He's like, I know I can beat this guy. Let me try and beat him with the money clip. And then it fails. And it's like, you know what? I need to be hitting Rainmakers the rest of this tournament.
I got to twist this guy out and smack him. Yeah.
Dude, how shocking would it be if Okada just like was eating pinfalls this G1?
If this is just his year to lose, right? I mean, like, that's a thing that has happened before too. What was it, 2018 with Naito? He just lost everything, and everyone's just waiting for him to start winning and getting some wins back, and he just didn't. So I don't know. Maybe you got plenty of time with Okada. He's the youngest. I mean, he's the youngest ace the company's ever had. So you got to believe he he can die for a year and come back just fine.
Dude,
So,
they've done that. Like, I know it's a long time ago, but like they did it with Hashimoto at one point. They've done it with Muto. They've done it with Chono. Like, they could be like, this is his year to lose, and like he just shockingly takes losses, and like the redemption isn't, oh, he's zany, he needs to get his groove back. They're like, no, he's actually taking losses. He needs to like.
he's got to get it together. He's got to get back with Gato. They got to break up the Bullet Club. Jay White's the face again. It's a full turn from everyone involved. No, I don't know. That's an interesting wrinkle because obviously he's trying something new, but it's not working. So maybe on that final night he's smacking Will Ospreay with a Rainmaker and the crowd pops.
Yeah, that'd be great. So let's move on to the next entrant here. The King, Minoru Suzuki, our current never openweight champion. 9th entry, his first tournament in 2 years.
Well, I'm really glad to see Suzuki back. One of my favorite wrestlers. And, people, it's funny. Last year, people were talking about Suzuki winding down and everything of that nature. But the reality is he had a good year last year. He just wasn't in the G1. And when you're not in the G1, it kind of eliminates any prospects of you being a realistic shot or candidate of, wrestler of the year or anything of that nature. Obviously, this year, things have been much different with the fact that, Suzuki was in that New Japan Cup. He's had this resurgence. He just had that match with Shingo. He's like a realistic, given the pandemic and everything, he's a realistic wrestler of the year candidate right now. And given the block and everyone he has to work with, I don't see why he couldn't be an actual candidate at the end of this tournament. He's not going to win it just because, like, he's already had so many shots at the title. I don't think they're going to sell at the Tokyo Dome with him. I wouldn't be unhappy. Like, I really would be, like, stoked, like, if they finally decided to go with him, but that doesn't seem like what they're doing at all. But they will set up some sort of never title situations. I think, like we mentioned, the Shingo's match is the one to look out for, but I'm excited. I mean, I'm really excited for him in this block. There's a lot of great prospects, and it's going to be pretty awesome.
So Suzuki's one of only 4 wrestlers in this block with a winning percentage against the block competitors over 500. So that's, I actually think that probably balances down over the course of this particular G1, because I think Suzuki's a guy who can lose and not really lose anything from it. The risk is that you set up a bunch of never title matches that hopefully they're committed to. But I think Suzuki's a guy he's gonna come out and he's going to give you exactly what he always gives you, which is great matches with some great story devices. And he can lose and laugh it off and cackle his way to the back and be fine. So he's a guy that I think you could see end up with 4 points, 6 points. I mean, he could eat a lot of losses. That wouldn't surprise me.
And how many first time matches does he have in this tournament?
None. Oh, sorry, Ospreay.
Gotcha.
Ospreay's the one.
But I'm looking forward to Suzuki in the G1 again. I don't think he has great chances of winning it. Like you mentioned, Chris, I think kind of his role is going to be kind of set up some never title matches, and he's a guy that you can easily beat. I definitely think he'll finish maybe towards the top of the block because he is a champion and he's kind of had this great year. But yeah, I don't think he's going to be one of these guys that ends up getting to the A block final. But yeah, I expect him to have a lot of great matches. He's had a great year. Definitely a wrestler of the year contender right now of his work. New Japan Cup and the Nagata feud and then the Shingo feud. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to do here.
Don't forget the Moxley match.
That's
match. Right, yeah, the Mox match.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I would disagree with you, Jeremy. I don't think I kind of agree with Chris. I think he's going to eat a lot of losses and finish at the bottom, but that's because I don't think it's going to be a super parity based tournament. I think if you see it as being one where lots of people are alive at the end, then quite possibly he might be one of those guys. But But at the end of the day, it's the never title. So I mean, it's not like, sure, the champions need to be booked strong, but it's the never title. So as much goodwill as it's earned this past year, it's still not going to be like protected. And everything Chris said too is like, he is a guy who doesn't lose anything when he does lose, ever, like at this point in his career. So it's kind of crazy. So I think he's going to be fine there. As far as for me, the most anticipated match for me, it's Ishii. Like, there's so many awesome matches, and there's the first time match with Will Ospreay, but like, there's a style that Suzuki wrestles, and no one else in the block, including Shingo, wrestles that style with him as well as Ishii. When those guys are together, it is always magic. And it's a match I've wanted to see again for, since like 2 years ago, since 2018. So I can't wait.
Yeah, and, for me, like I mentioned earlier, the Okada match, him and Okada, is something I'm really looking forward to. But just from an intrigue standpoint, I'm also looking forward to seeing what him versus Taichi is going to look like. And I know there was the heated angle on one of the New Japan Road shows that happened this weekend where they were grabbing each other by the throat and kind of jaw-jacking each other. So I'm kind of curious to see how that matchup goes.
Yeah, I'm most looking forward to Okada. I loved their match at Royal Quest. I thought it was great. And, I mean, those guys have such great history, too. So another candidate for a draw, as I think I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Hot take, I don't love their series. In fact, I thought their Royal Quest match was the best match they've ever had, followed by the previous G1 match where they had the draw.
Yeah.
But they had a really heralded New Beginning match, 2015 or 2016, something like that. I didn't love that match. I didn't love some of the other stuff that they've done in the past. Or I didn't love that Outside in the Rain match either. The 30-minute draw, I didn't love that one either. So I mean, like,
it's just kind of cool, right? Like,
yeah, it was epic.
It is. It's really cool, but like, I don't think Okada's great at wrestling Suzuki style, and he ends up just sitting in leg locks for a really long time.
I mean, they've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of their 8 matches have gone over 30 minutes or 30 minutes or over. So that's, you got to figure that may come into play here.
Yeah.
Man, this guy with the stats.
Is that let me look. I wonder if that's a main event. I don't think it is even. So,
yeah.
But that actually probably makes it a better candidate for a draw.
Yeah, I had a feeling that was might have been a semi-main on a night.
Was Okada and Sonata last year? I know it wasn't a draw, but was that a main event?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Okada Suzuki is third from the top.
So that might not be as good of a draw candidate as you tout it to be, although I know historically it might be. But, dude, you just never know. Like, these guys might just go 30 minutes on the undercard. They might just do it.
Well, that's what I mean. I actually think it being mid-card makes it more of a candidate for a draw with those two guys.
Right, because I think people expect the draws in the main events or maybe even the semi-mains, and so I don't think people are going to be looking for that in the middle of the card.
I'm booking them to go double count out, personally. 80s style.
I was going to say, it's been a while since we saw a double anything.
All right. So,
double knockout. Let's do it.
Let's move on to Taichi, Suzuki's stablemate here. So Taichi's coming into this tournament as one half of the IWGP Tag Team Champions with Zack Sabre Jr., the Dangerous Techers. This is Taichi's second entry, second consecutive.
Yeah, so I mean, it's really funny how like last year, Taichi, and actually the previous year, people were clamoring for Taichi to be in it, and he got kind of bumped, and people were like, super upset about it, and most of the like diehard New Japan fans were like, he doesn't deserve to be in it. And last year people were saying the same thing. They thought it was a joke. And 2 years later we're here, and it's like it would be unfathomable that Taichi wasn't in the G1. That's kind of the goodwill that they've built with him, and he's still someone that is inconsistent as hell, but it's not because he's inconsistent due to like the fact that he can't go and he can't put it together. It's more like a choice. when he wants to turn it on, he can, and when he doesn't want to, he just doesn't do it, and you just don't know which one it's gonna be. But when last year, I was impressed with his G1. In fact, I liked his G1 run better than Jeff Cobb's G1, which would surprise a lot of people. So I think that the thing with him and Minoru Suzuki, we saw where they were grabbing each other's throats. I think that's not going to lead to anything long term, but it's always kind of interesting when you see the Suzuki-gun infighting. We've seen it in World Tag Leagues and things like that in the past. So I think that's going to be very interesting. But, Taichi's here to eat pins. Like, unfortunately, he's like in one of the toughest blocks in the history of the G1 ever. And he's going to play spoiler. He's going to have good matches. He's going to, get some upset wins, but he's going to eat a lot of pinfalls. And I see him getting 6 points max.
I think he's going to set up some something with the tag titles, and it's probably going to be another run with Ibushi and Tanahashi if we're looking at those last couple matches. So, but yeah, I think the intrigue with Taichi is the Suzuki match, and maybe they're planting the seed for what they want to do with that faction going forward.
Yeah, there's a subsect of fans that are like praying that that's the case, and me and Jeremy make fun of those fans all the time on here because we always think that they're reading too much into things. So if you're correct, I think there's a lot of people that would just be ecstatic.
I think they're going to stoke the flame with it. I don't know that I believe that that's what they're going to go with. But I mean, Taichi's probably actually he's one of the guys in this tournament that I'm the least excited to see, though I expected him in the tournament. I mean, no first-time matchups. They've pretty much burned everything with him to some extent. So he's kind of established himself with the feud with Okada at the beginning of the year, but I wouldn't say that really elevated him. And now he's living in the tag world, which is a good spot for him because he is technically a singles wrestler. And I think it does elevate the tag titles, but I don't think he's going to have a great G1 here.
Yeah, and one thing that's been worrying me about his G1, so he's been cutting promos, New Japan Road talking about before it was
he don't want to be in it.
Yeah, he's like, I don't want to be in G1. G1's a lot of work. It's so exhausting. He's like, I'm a tag team guy now, and so I don't know if he's gonna pull like a God or a Tama Tonga and just come out here and just kind of just lob it up and not have a great tournament and do a bunch of cheating, a bunch of iron claws, hit me with the mic stand kind of thing because he doesn't want to compete in the G1.
I don't want to confuse anybody here. There's people who are going to hear these statements and they're going to think we're Taichi haters on the show. We're not. We're not Taichi praisers either, but we're pretty fair and balanced when it comes to the guy. And over the past few years, when a lot of people have been down on him, we have given him his props when it's due. That being said, even when you're getting top-notch Taichi at his top level, I mean, Kawada, cosplay Taichi, which is his best version. You're still getting him taking off the pants. You're still getting him with the shenanigans. It's just part of the deal, and that's part of the drawback. So it's even at his best, there's still going to be some things that are goofy that you're just not, unless you love that stuff. I mean, my girlfriend, he's one of her favorite people. She was trying to get me to buy her a shirt of his and then couldn't understand why there were no good shirts for him. And I was like, it's because no one likes him. But that's kind of the deal. I'm optimistic at this point and I'm hoping he has good matches, but Jeremy, you could be right. He could come out here and stink it up and it would be, and here's the worst part. If he does, it'll be by design and it will be by choice. There won't be this question like with Tama Tonga where we're like, is he good? Is he not good? We're not really sure. We're trying to figure it out. No, we already know he's good. We see him have tons of great matches along with tons of bad matches. And we've seen him have some of those really good matches with the guys in this tournament. Will Ospreay, Jeff Cobb, Kota Ibushi, Ishii, who I think is his best singles opponent ever, probably. So there's no excuse for him to have a bad tournament, but he might be one of the night off guys.
Yeah, I'm hoping he's not. I'm hoping we do get good Tai Chi. Like you mentioned, Ishii, he's had some great matches with Ishii in the feud there over the Never title, and so that's the match I got circled. I think him and Ishii is going to, it's not with shenanigans. It's going to pull out a good match out of him.
I am not looking forward to a single Tai Chi match. So maybe Suzuki just because, but that's early in the tournament too. So I think from there, he'll be there. But maybe he could surprise me. I'm open-minded, but I'm not all that hopeful.
All right, well, let's move on to the second to last guy here in this A block, the Switchblade, Jay White. This is his third consecutive. One of the foreigners we forgot to mention, we got these foreigners that came in. We didn't know the stats of these guys, so obviously New Japan was able to get in Jeff Cobb and Will Ospreay, Jay White. And so, yeah, Jay's one of the guys that was able to get into the country for this tournament. So we got the Switchblade Black. He's been on NJPW Strong. Had a feud there with Flip Gordon, ended up beating Flip Gordon there, and so now he's kind of coming back to Japan now, and first time we've seen him in Japan since the pandemic.
I'm calling New Japan Strong Bizarro World New Japan. A lot of people don't want to hear this, but Jay White has a very strong possibility of winning this thing. If not the block, the whole tournament. He's a former champion.
He was the finals last year.
He was in the finals last year. There is a history. It's not, gospel, but there is a tendency in years past where finalists will go on to win the tournament the following year, not just in the G1, but in other tournaments as well. Are you going to say something, Chris?
I was just gonna say that there's probably a perception that that's common, but it's not. Actually, the only time it's happened in the last 15 years is Ibushi to go to the final and then win the next one. I know you then said a different tournament, which that totally aligns, right? So you've got other opportunities for these guys, but if we're just talking G1 to G1, actually Ibushi winning after losing the final was really unique.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. I don't know. It feels like, and I haven't done the work you've done. It feels like that's like a common or tendency, but it might not be at all. But like I know, looking at Super Juniors, that they've done that quite a bit in the past. So maybe that's why I'm feeling that way. I don't know, but even still, like just given the fact that Jay White is one of the few big four guys that you have here that has never won. And then you kind of look at the block and how it's all kind of like playing out on the final night. It does feel like we've played that game in the past where Jay White is kind of alive but gets knocked out on the final night. We did that 2 years ago, and it would seem weird for them to do it again. I think that there's a high likelihood that he sneaks in to the A block based off of a draw or based off of whatever happens between Ospreay and Okada on the final night. And there are a lot of people who are anticipating this big thing between him and Evil. I'm not so convinced of that myself, but I'm not even really saying I want Jay White to win because I've been less than impressed with. I was in the camp where I didn't like his performances at Wrestle Kingdom this year, like at all. I thought that they were a huge step back from what he's capable of. But then again, last year, him against Ibushi was my match of the year. I thought it was the best New Japan match all year long, including better than Ospreay and Shingo. So like that's how highly regarded I had that match. So I don't know what we're looking at here. But he always does really, ever since came back, he's done super well in these tournaments. So even if he doesn't win it, I can't imagine him not winning 5 or 6 of the matches.
I watched the G1 final from last year, the Ibushi match, last night actually, and I severely underrated that match when it happened. And I don't know if I was just tired or don't know, tired of the Jay White shtick at the time, but like watching it in a vacuum, my God, that match rocks. That match is so good. So on the piece of losing the final and winning a G1, so there's only 5 guys that have ever lost a final and then not subsequently won a G1 either before or after they lost the final. So and it's a different class of guy than Jay White, right? So we're talking Rick Rude, Yoshihiro Takayama, Carl Anderson, and Power Warrior. So I guess, Sasaki actually won one later on. So
yeah, I was gonna say he did.
Right. So, honestly, that says something that he's gonna win a G1 at some point.
At some point.
Right. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be this one, but I think he's at that level. In regards to Jay White this year, what I'm most curious about is, are we going to continue to see Jay White cleaning up his act? Or maybe not even cleaning up his act, but is he going to be the Bullet Club guy that wins clean? Because I think there's a chance that we're going to see kind of a pivot towards the middle for Jay White this year, where he's going to win without much help. And maybe that's going to be part of the Bullet Club story going forward. But I think Evil's going to continue doing what Evil's been doing. And Yujiro's going to be Yujiro and do a bunch of wacky stuff. And then Kenta probably somewhere in between, right? So, but I think Jay White's got a chance to be a guy who can kind of be a Bullet Club member, maybe win at least without interference. Maybe there's some kind of debauchery, but not necessarily other people. And I think that's what really pulls people out of those matches. So I'm excited to see if we get Jay White just a little bit cleaned up, because I think his promo at the end is strong, and some of the other kind of indicators that we've seen from his matches his match with Flip Gordon, even, they would suggest to me that he is pivoting at least a little bit towards the middle.
Yeah, and I think, too, if Jay ends up winning the A block and even winning the whole thing, I think that adds more fuel to the fire of who's the real leader in Bullet Club thing. Because Jay can kind of run in, come back, it's like, all right, like I just won the G1, and like you lost your block, Evil, you lost the titles, like it's time for you to move aside. Like, I'm back in Japan, I'm the man now. And so that could end up being a thing that really kind of continues to cause this rift in Bullet Club with Jay just coming, swooping in and winning the G1.
One final thing here. We've made the case for why he probably will win, and it's exactly one thing. I felt like I was forgetting something, and it's exactly what you touched on, Chris. It's like he's gonna win a G1 at some point, just given the caliber of where he's at in the company. It's just, is it now or is it gonna be later? But the case against it is the fact that we've seen him and Naito several times within a very short period of time. And in my personal opinion, they were never really that good. In fact, I think the best match they had was in the G1 last year, which I thought was underwhelming. And then they consistently got worse. I hated the match at Wrestle Kingdom. So I don't know that like they could do well on January 4th with those two. However, because it's such a wacky year, maybe this is the right year to do it, because we don't know what we're getting January 4th.
I will say this, you either lose one G1 final or you lose 3. So no one on the record has 2 G1 finals losses. So Jay's a guy that I think will win a G1 at some point, but I don't think he's lost his last final either.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what they end up doing with him. I'm looking forward to the Will Ospreay match. They had the Ring of Honor match where Jay was still a young lion. That was really great. So it'll be interesting to see these guys again.
The match they had last year was just awesome, and it's kind of forgotten. It's like one of that anniversary show match was so good.
Yeah, and so I think these guys have great chemistry. They're kind of career rivals in a way, and so I think kind of rekindling that feud there would be a great, especially now with Ospreay full heavyweight. Let's see what he could do against Jay.
So we got the
no first time matchups for Jay. Actually, I just wanted to toss that in there. Sorry, Yujiro.
I was gonna say I don't think
I always look over his column here because I just don't want to see it. Yeah, just Yujiro, and that's going to be a mess. But that's all I had on that.
So our final A block competitor, Yujiro Takahashi. I guess I'll just start. Yujiro. This is his 7th time in the tournament and his first in 5 years, and that's for good reason because he's slotted as a lower mid-card guy. Like, I don't think he's held a title since he was like a never champion years and years and years ago, and that was short term. Like, Yujiro is – now here's one thing I will say, and this is something I saw on Reddit. In the last 15 years, the only person that has ever lost all of their block matches was Hanma. And that was part of a major storyline that actually got him over. So unless they're like breaking tradition, Yujiro is going to beat somebody and probably play a big spoiler to somebody or something of that nature if you're going to maximize his impact by giving him a win. But I don't anticipate the matches to be good. He'll probably have a banger. We've been talking about it all year that he is due his one annual banger, and we didn't get it yet. And we thought we might get it with Okada. It never happened. So I'm sure, I don't know, him and Ospreay, him and Ishii, maybe him and, I don't know, Ibushi. They'll have some great match. But, people are not excited. I'm not excited. Yujiro's the night off guy. That's the bottom line here, and he's here to take pinfalls.
And to your point, Josh, about him potentially beating someone, we did have a couple questions about that. So we had a question from Kenny Omega Fan 18. Considering Yujiro Takahashi hasn't been in G1 Climax for a few years, how well do you think he's going to do? And who's Takahashi going to beat in this block? Also, same question from BJ Baker on Twitter. Who is Yujiro going to beat?
I think it's going to be a surprise, but I don't think it's going to be a huge surprise. So I think you're looking at someone like Ishii, or
Okada,
or Suzuki, or he finally gets a win over Okada, right? I mean, like that's the program, but I think he'll do it by nefarious means regardless. But I would set the over under for Yujiro at like 3, because there's a chance that he goes with some shenanigans, right? So like I don't know. I mean, he's gonna win something surprising though, and it's gonna be one of those like jaw droppers. And I don't think
when you say 3, do you mean 3 points or 3 wins?
Points.
So you think he's gonna have like 1 win and then 1 like draw or something?
Well, no. So it's an over under. So like you can
Gotcha.
pick one or the other probably, but I think he'd be a candidate for the first double count out since 2009 if you can get someone to chase him.
I think
I got him at like 4. I'm gonna just guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the upset could also potentially even be Jay White, where it's one of those Bullet Club things where it's like, haha, we're kind of playing around, like, go ahead and lay down for me, and then Yujiro, like, inside cradles him real quick and pins him.
And then gets kicked out of Bullet Club.
Yeah, then Yujiro's like, I'm the leader of Bullet Club. I beat Jay White.
That man, he has tenure. He helped win the title for AJ, and he can never be kicked out due to that.
That's true. He also was the never openweight champion during the 2014 G1. When he was a real wrestler.
You know what? He used to be awesome. Like there was a time
he was great.
He was great.
Yeah,
like
I'm rewatching the 2013 G1 with Sean Radican at PW Torch, and like some of the Yujiro matches are really good.
Bro, when I talk about how like he wrestled similar to Kurt Angle and he had like that amateur pedigree, people don't believe me. I'm like, he used to be really good.
Yeah, it's a real thing. Like there are Wrestling Observer newsletters where Dave Meltzer's talking about how quote unquote New Japan knows that Yujiro and Okada are the future. And like it's a real quote, like it's out there. And he was, I mean, as with a lot of things, 50% right.
Yeah, and then, Yujiro decided, you know what, I'm good just being a low card Bullet Club guy, and just kind of mailed it in.
We'll see if Peter's back.
Chris is here low key slandering Dave Meltzer on our watch.
Listen, big fan of Dave. Okay, love Dave. Don't slander my adoration of Dave or any of the other quote unquote dirt sheets. I love them all.
So I had a question here from our user PSAN91. What is your most anticipated match from the A block? Mine is Shingo versus Okada. I'll be lucky enough to attend the show live, and I have arena seats. I'll also be at the opening night this Saturday, and that card looks great on paper. Can't wait for G1 to start this weekend.
Oh, man, this one's living the dream. I was going to go to Japan for this G1, but obviously that got derailed. So good on you. My most anticipated match of the block is I'm still going to go with Ibushi Okada. I think they're going to deliver, and I think they're going to set the tone for the tournament.
I've got to agree with him. I've just got to go with Okada against Shingo, but that's just pure anticipation. It doesn't mean it's going to be the best. So, funny thing, and we don't even have to go back. I think we should just let this mistake continue. We did not give our most anticipated matches for Taichi, Jay White, or Yujiro Takahashi because we just don't care.
Taichi, I said Ishii, and Jay White, I said Ospreay.
Okay, never mind. Sorry.
I said I don't care. I addressed that with Taichi, and I'll let you go back on the tape as long as Jeremy's actually recording.
Yes, we are recording. But yeah, most anticipated match of the overall A block. I think I gotta go Okada Ibushi also, just because that is the first main event. That's what we saw January 4th. Like I think, like you said, Chris, it's gonna set the tone and pace for the whole tournament. So now let's move on to the B block here, and I have a feeling we might get through this one a little bit faster than we did the A block, just due to this kind of different in talent level that we have here in the B block.
There's stories here, Jeremy. There's stories. They're very nuanced. They're deep.
There's going to be
you just don't get it. You're just like you're a notebook, wrestling fan. I'm here for the stories.
There's going to be a lot of moments there's
going to be a lot of moments.
All right, so let's start here with Hiroshi Tanahashi, the ace, his 19th entry, 19th consecutive. He won the G1 in 2007, 2015, and 2018. So 3-time winner, back in the tournament, 19th time. Do we think the ace can do it again? Can the ace ride again?
I think this is his first B block since 07.
Yes.
And he hasn't, basically, if he hasn't been in the B block since 07 and he won the B block in 07, then that tells me he's probably going to win this block.
Yep, that's it.
That's how it works, right?
That's the stuff right there.
No, but in all seriousness, though, I'm not anticipating Tanahashi to win this block by any means. But I got to tell you, when I look at the field of competitors, it's not the most unplausible possibility. I'm not going to make that my bracket. But if you do, I wouldn't laugh at you by any means. The one thing I think that is kind of holding it back is like he did just win it 2 years ago. But Tanahashi and Naito has been a pretty protected match. In fact, if Tanahashi was in the opposite block from Naito, I think it would be even more plausible. The fact that they're facing off in the block kind of diminishes it a bit. My gut instinct is Tanahashi is going to beat Naito in the block for a potential title shot, because that's something that they teased earlier in the year. And with everything that happened with the schedule, just never happened. I think he'll be like the interim title challenger, possibly. All tag implications put aside, I think that he might be a good challenger to the IWGP title to put over Naito going into the Tokyo Dome. But I don't think he's winning this.
Does it change your thoughts? Because it changed mine, because I was right on par with you that Tanahashi and Naito is the main event of the first night of B block. Like, you think Naito's strong enough right now that he can eat a loss right after regaining the championship after a really weird summer?
No, but does it matter? Because it's Naito and they don't give a fuck about him.
Well, I think the thing
it's not like that's uncommon for them to do a weird, wacky booking decision that would probably hurt him long term. Like, they think he's impenetrable for some reason.
I mean, he's pretty close, but I mean, I had Tanahashi as my when I saw the blocks but didn't know the schedule. My first thought was like, okay, Tanahashi's beating Naito. He might be the only person that beats Naito. but that was my thought. And then when the cards came out, when I saw that on night one, I was surprised, but also like it aligns with what they're doing with A Block too. They're giving you something to, wet the palate right off the bat. But that did kind of change my mind, because I just think Naito needs a couple wins to like be a credible champion this time.
Yeah. The thing too, we have to, remember on these opening nights, they typically do some kind of big major upset on the first night of the tournament. So, everybody thinking, Naito, just got his belts back. He needs this momentum. What better way than to kind of flip the script than to have Tanahashi, especially Tanahashi, who's been on a losing streak lately, on the losing end of things, come in and defeats Naito. And like Josh mentioned, they get that title match that they've been teasing. And then we know we have the Power Struggle show that'll be happening in November. So I'm sure they're going to want a big main event for that. Tanahashi Naito sounds great to me. You can do that big matchup, and then that kind of, big match, big selling match, and then you can, push Tanahashi to the side and have him do something else at the Dome. Then Naito moves on to face the winner.
Maybe they go super meta and they think, it's too telegraphed that Tanahashi would beat him on the first night, because it's always a surprise upset. So maybe we go the opposite way and have and then we come full circle and go back to what Chris is saying. Maybe that's what happens.
That would be the biggest upset to be had of these first couple nights, though. I mean, anything else is pretty plausible.
What if there's no upsets the first two nights, because that's the true upset, and
that's the upset? Yeah, that's it. I mean, I love the idea of Tanahashi winning. Tanahashi and Naito, they haven't had a match since 2017, which was the block final. When they had a series too.
That trilogy was incredible. That year.
The match at Dominion, and it kind of got lost with the Omega Okada story all happening kind of at the same time. But that G1 block final was awesome. So this is, I anticipate some callbacks. Would love to see Tanahashi try to get the what submission was he using at the time?
Oh, the Cloverleaf.
Cloverleaf, yeah. I'd love to see him try to get the Cloverleaf on, right? Like, so those are the details I'll be looking for in that match. But, Tanahashi, he's competed in the most G1 matches. He's 141 coming into this, 19 straight G1s now. You gotta wonder where they're headed with his story. Like, is this another, classic Tanahashi redemption arc? Like, they've done this before, but like, you can go back to that well as many times as you want with Tanahashi, and it's gonna be fine. So I think one big win too is also an option for him. One big win against Naito, and then I wouldn't say take the rest of the tournament off, but then you can go back to his struggles.
Yeah, this B block is very interesting. I think it really depends on how you see it all shaking out, how you end up booking someone like Tanahashi. But all plausible possibilities here. Most anticipated match for Tanahashi.
For me, I'm going to say the Naito match, because I think that just kind of is going to determine a lot of ways this block is going to shake out. It's going to determine, a future title match down the road. And like we mentioned, these guys have not wrestled in several years, and so that's the one I got circled.
I'm going to agree with that, but I'm also going to throw out the Sonata match, because it's slotted in a main event. It's later in the tournament, and I think that this is a block that's pretty wide open. So I don't really know where it's headed, but seeing that match slotted as the main event of the last card that we know the match order of, it's telling me at least something's going on with that match.
I agree with both of your points. I think those are both very anticipated matches for him, but I'm going to throw one out there that's a little bit of a sleeper. Juice Robinson. The last time we saw a really big match between them was the New Japan Cup like 2 years ago. And they've had other singles matches prior to that, and they've all been really great. But that New Japan Cup match was like kind of unheralded, but it was so good. And I'm hoping Juice has a really good tournament this year. But I think him, like, when I just look at on paper, like, who do I think he's going to have the quote unquote best match with? I don't see why it couldn't be with Juice. I think Juice is like one of the most underrated G1 competitors of the last 3 or 4 years. And I think that he could actually give Tanahashi maybe his best match in 2020 out of this whole block.
Well, and that's the next guy we got to talk about. We'll start talking about him. The flamboyant Juice Robinson, his 4th tournament, 4th consecutive.
Curious what Juice is going to look like.
Yeah.
Right? Because he has literally not been seen except in maybe a picture on Instagram with Tony Storm, like for a very long time.
That photo of Tony Storm, he looked ripped. He looked jacked. Vascular. He looked vascular. He's huge. Look at him. I can't wait to see Juice. I'm anticipating what I always anticipate from Juice every year. Him to come out here, have key performances, and not do so hot on the points, just like he does every year.
Yeah, I think he's going to be one of those guys. Yeah, he's going to have some, very good, maybe in some great matches, but I don't expect him to end up finishing in the block very high.
What was the series that that Post Wrestling did on the G1 finals last year? The Cruel Summer?
Yeah.
They did Cruel Summer, and I was listening to it, and there was like all these like times in the past under different bookers where like people were given shots to like kind of run, with G1 finals, and like they kind of got me swept up listening to that. To like, there was like a point last year where I was like, is Juice gonna end up in the final? He might do it. And I like got excited, and then like I haven't said it on the air, and then like he got eliminated a couple days out. I was so bummed. So I don't have high hopes for that. The other interesting thing, what title implications do we have here aside from Tetsuya Naito?
We got 2/3 of the Never Six Man champs, Goto and Yoshihashi, in this block, and
that don't count.
We have 1/2 of the tag champs, Zack Sabre Jr. We have the number 1 contender for the U.S. title, Kenta. He has the red briefcase.
So basically,
and you've got a Little League trophy.
Oh yeah, KOPW, Toriano, yeah.
This block is weird, man. Not only is it like, it's the B block, like in all, it's just the B block. I'm just gonna say that. It's weird. I was gonna say like maybe there's opportunities for Juice to like get other title shots, but it doesn't even feel like that. I don't know. I don't know what this block holds for Juice. I don't know, man.
But
I will say I don't know.
I will say though, even though typically he doesn't always perform as far as points wise towards the top of the block, this is, I think, a weaker block than he's usually in. And there are a lot of guys I could see him winning here, and I could see him potentially having his best scoring G1 this year.
They've put him in some killer blocks in the past couple of years. Like I think the last 2 years he's been in the B block, which in the past has been a killer block, and that's not the case here. And so I could see him doing pretty well. I don't see why he can't beat Goto or Yano or Yoshihashi or Zack Sabre or Kenta. Like, those are guys he could get wins over.
He's 2-2 all time against Goto, so like that's a win he could get. 1-1 with Sonata. So those are wins he could definitely get. He could certainly pull a win over Tanahashi. Zack Sabre Jr. maybe.
Yeah,
right?
If you want, if you can get Finley,
when Zack fucked him up.
If you can get Finley into the country, then you have Juice pin Sabre, and you can do Finn Juice against Dangerous Tickers.
Yeah.
Dude, that's not what I want from Juice. Like, remember they took us on this big long thing about him like starting at the bottom and rising to the top, and then like he hit Cody, and like things have never been the same since he hit Cody. Like that was like something that derailed him, and he's never really come back from that whole Cody ordeal, honestly.
Yeah, Juice has been so back of mind that when I heard that he was probably going to make it in for the G1, I was surprised just to hear the name, honestly. And also, last I heard, he was hurt. So I'm curious what the output's going to be like with Juice. I hope that they've got something for him, but I think he's going to be one of those middle of the pack guys. I think that's just where he's going to live this year. I don't see a ton from him, even though they had the big moment with the tag championship and World Tag League. So and I thought they had something good going.
Well, one last thing I'll say. I think that there is a possibility that he's not a middle of the pack guy. Maybe this is his chance to jump out. And the reason I say that is because 2 years ago, they had the storyline with him having the broken hand and he was toughing it out, and then last year it was he's crazy about Mox. If he just beats Mox, then the whole thing will have been worth it. And that didn't really play out that way. And now he's coming. We haven't seen him in forever, so there's no story going into it. Maybe they can build some stories throughout, but I don't see why the narrative. He is a guy that they're invested in, obviously. To what degree, I don't know, but why can't it be that this is just a standout G1 for him? I'm not saying like he goes all the way, but where he just like beats a lot of people and raises his stock. I think that's very plausible, personally.
Do you think that there's a chance that he beats Naito, and Naito gets kind of the standard one of those standard title defenses, and you're pretty sure he's not going to lose, but it's a guy like Juice. It's a guy that you weren't expecting, but it puts him in a big moment.
I mean, the reason I picked Tanahashi is just because it's been a held off match, and it's one that we know can draw whatever that means in 2020. But that would be very exciting to do that. And that's something that would definitely elevate him because he's never had an IWGP title shot. So, yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, his last singles match was in at the Tokyo Dome with Moxley. So, and before that, it was really, he ended up in the no DQ match with Archer. And before that, it was really the G1 of any consequence. So he hasn't been doing a ton of singles work, but this, it's certainly something that could establish him.
Yeah, I think a Naito Juice match would definitely be fresh and something new and something very interesting. The only thing that I kind of hesitant about that is just the fact that as of right now, Power Struggle is the only big show that we have between, at least on the schedule of right now, is between after G1 and between Tokyo Dome. And so I still think for Power Struggle they're going to do something like Naito and Tanahashi, and there's not enough room in that, unless they do something in December possibly, but I don't think so. They'll do something that big to where they're doing an IWGP title match in December.
Well, Power Struggle is November 7th. So you've got a good amount of November left. You've got almost 2 months before you have to do the Dome. So I think you could squeeze another one in there. I don't know that that's the plan. I don't know what the tour after Power Struggle will be either. So if we're doing World Tag League, obviously that's going to be 40 nights of inconsequential tag team wrestling and 2 nights of consequential tag team wrestling. So
I'm going to tell you right now, I think it's going to be a Best of Super Juniors.
I'm hopeful that's the case. That would be quite the treat.
Yeah, that'd be one hell of a way to end the year.
Listen, I'm here for this new schedule. This has been great for me. I love the fall G1 where you don't have to mess around all fall, waiting for these briefcase and title defenses, because you kind of know how they're going to go. So like we've eliminated the kind of the dead zone of the New Japan calendar by moving the G1. But if you toss Best of Super Juniors in, say, November or December, and that just builds towards their Wrestle Kingdom title match, maybe you push it off to Wrestle Kingdom, that works for me too. That's awesome.
Well, the reason I mentioned that's just, you look at Taichi Ishimori, they could definitely have a makeshift, challenger, or even do some sort of multi-man match, but they don't have anything right now, and we're stuck in G1. So what better way to plus it feels like they're building up something between Despy and Hiromu, and how that's not really a Wrestle Kingdom-esque match. Sounds like something that you could easily pay off on one of those Best of Super Junior nights. Just feels like, based on the fact that they're building some sort of singles feud between Despy and Hiromu, hypothetically, when they're not prone to really do a lot of junior singles feuds without titles involved, that might be a giveaway that they're doing Super Juniors, in my opinion.
Hey, they've all got the time off right now. They'll be fresh.
Yeah. So, got to back here to G1. So, Juice Robinson, who are you looking forward to seeing him face?
Oh, for me, I've got to say, Goto. And I just say Goto because him and Goto have fantastic matches. They're, what did you say they were, 2-2?
Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, they got a lot of history with one another, based around that Never. I think also the IC title, but mainly the Never title. So for me, it's Goto.
What about you, Chris?
I've got the Tanahashi match penciled in just because I think that'll be pretty telling of what we've got from Juice right now. But I love Juice. I think he's I think there's actually quite a few good matchups for him in this block. So he hasn't fought Kenta since NXT. So, he's probably got a chip on his shoulder there. I mean, they had a grueling 5-match series on the Largo Loop, as Hideo Itami and CJ Parker, but and I think one of them was Kenta's first match on NXT TV. But yeah, so I'm curious to see if that even comes into play. Like, even if no one tells that story, like if they know that, right, and they want to put on the match that they've always kind of known they could have. So he does have a first-time matchup with Yoshihashi too.
They'll tell the story via a backstage segment the night before their match, and very few people will see it.
And we're the only ones that will get it.
I also have gone with Tanahashi here. I just feel like, that's kind of a big matchup there. That kind of main event style, and it's going to be something that can really just show what Juice is really made of. And so yeah, looking forward to Tanahashi and Juice.
Dude, we know what Juice is made of. Juice fucks. He's awesome.
So moving on next, Hiroki Goto, 13th entry, 13 consecutive, 1/3 of the Never Openweight 6-man champions. He was the 2008 G1 winner.
Yeah. Funny thing about Goto is, like, if you would ask me last year, what are the chances that Goto could be a block finalist? Just a block finalist, not even a winner, but just a finalist of a G1 ever again, I would have told you probably highly unlikely, maybe 0. But this year, looking at the field, I'm like, why not just throw Goto in there? He's your utility guy. Like, he could definitely do it. It would be fine if they ended up going that way, depending on which guy from the A block they wanted to go with. If I'm really realistically looking at the A block, this is just from a pure fan perspective, and I'm looking at who I would like to see them face off with, Goto's on the very short list of guys I would, from a fan perspective, even want to see in a G1 final. And I'm not even like a Goto guy like other people are. Like, I'm not like this diehard, like, he's so underappreciated. Like, I think he's had a long career and he's where he's at. But Goto always does better than people kind of anticipate he will do in a G1. I don't know if he'll be alive at the end, but he's going to do pretty well just because he's Goto, and they usually take care of him. And that's about it. Yeah.
G1 is for Goto. Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that delivers. He's, again, like you said, that's the perfect way to put it. He's your utility guy. He's the guy that you can tag in for pretty much any role, and he's gonna be serviceable at the worst, right? So, no first time matchups for Goto. He's faced everyone on the list here at least once,
and he's beat them all.
He has quite literally beaten them all at least once. Yeah. No overs.
I was making a Bob Holly joke. I didn't even know if he actually beat them all.
He's only beaten Tanahashi once. He's lost to him 10 times. So that's the level of Goto. But yeah, everyone else he's beaten at least once. So yeah, I never have a lot to say about Goto, but I'll enjoy every match. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, I think with this field, he definitely has the potential to finish very high in the block. Especially like you mentioned, Chris, that he's already beaten, at least has one win over every single guy in the block. I think it's just, yeah, I could definitely see him even second, maybe even third in the block, maybe even potentially alive somehow in the final night, and then a loss in the final night kind of prevents him from going to the finals.
He was alive in last year's final night. He was a long shot, but
yeah.
He's always one of those guys that's like, I guess Goto could win. I mean, like, he snuck into the final one year, right, with the draw.
Right.
It was Tanahashi Okada draw, right? So
yeah.
Who's to say with this block? maybe sneaking in again.
So what do you think about matchups?
Well, for me, it's the one I just mentioned earlier. It's him and Juice. You know what? I'll change it. I'll go with him and, let's say, Kenta. They had a pretty good Tokyo Dome match. I don't know how many matches they've had career-wise. I think that might have been the one and only. So maybe that will be,
Yeah, it's the only one.
Pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Honestly, another match with Kenta. I liked the Tokyo Dome match enough, so let's run it back, see what they got.
Yeah, I'm right in line with you guys. I also was a fan of the Never title match at Wrestle Kingdom, and so yeah, I think that could end up being Goto's best matchup in this block.
All right.
So
Toru Yano.
Yes, Toru Yano, the provisional KOPW 2020 champion, 15th entry, 14th consecutive G1.
The lineal provisional King of Pro Wrestling champion.
That's probably going to change here, right?
I don't understand why Toru Yano's matches in the G1 can't all be contested under King of Pro Wrestling rules. I don't understand why, if this was so important for them to have a press conference for it and have put him over Okada to have won the thing, why any of these block matches have to preclude the KOPW stipulations. They should all be KOPW tournament matches.
Well, how do we know they're not going to be? There's still plenty of time for them to announce that.
Well, they haven't indicated. They haven't indicated it yet. But who's he facing the first night?
Oh, you come at
it doesn't matter.
Tough questions. Wait,
it doesn't matter.
B-block first night. Toru Yano, Sonata.
Okay,
yeah, that could be. I mean, he was in the KOPW final.
Yeah,
what a
him
story.
And Sonata should be in a cage.
In a cage that no one can see.
But in all seriousness, let's cut to the chase here. Toru Yano, he's going to knock someone out of the running, just like he does every year. He's probably going to get 2 wins at max. He's going to be comedy relief. He's going to be the night off guy. And he's usually going to have some sort of running gag story that you either buy into or you don't. If you're me, you do. And I'm not even a Yano guy, but I like his G1 runs. I just do.
I loved Yano and Moxley last year. I thought it was great. It had me cackling with joy. So, yeah. I mean, here's something. Could you believe it that Toru Yano has faced Hiroshi Tanahashi 20 times in singles matches?
Really?
Yeah. Isn't that I pulled that? I was like, that's not right. I'm slicing the data.
That's not that surprising if you think
it's
about
not if you think about
tenure.
Exactly.
Well,
so it goes all the way back
record?
to 2003 and the U30 openweight title. They had a long series with that in 2004 and 2005. They've got 2 draws for that matter, and Yano has won 3 matches. So he's lost to him 15 times. But I mean, what a fascinating little thing.
And Yano beat him in a G1.
Yeah. 2011.
Rolled that man up quick.
And in the New Japan Cup in 2015.
That's right. Yeah. So I mean,
one to watch, right? Tanahashi and Yano maybe spoiling Tanahashi's last big run.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Yano. He can literally beat anybody with the low blow roll up, duct taping their feet together to get the count out win. There's so many ways that he can just kind of get these banana peel, kind of wins. And so he's the guy you have to watch. Who's he going to spoil? Who's he going to beat? Like you mentioned last year, he had that big win over John Moxley, who was undefeated and kind of blazing a trail in the block at the time. And so, yeah, Yano could literally beat anyone, but he is going to be the comic relief. He is going to be the night off guy. We're not going to, at the end of this tournament, we're not going to be talking about, the great, 4-star plus Yano matches. But we'll be talking about the funny moments of, remember when Yano tied this guy up or, quickly, roll this guy up. So,
Jeremy, you're so far off base, it's not even funny. How quickly you forget how every single year there's someone who jumps on Reddit or Twitter and tells us about how Yano has had the match of the year in the G1.
The true ace.
The true ace of the company. So, of course, he's going to have some sort of classic. He does every year. Duh.
Well, I know. I'll be looking to see, who the future KOPW challengers could be. Everybody who pins him. So,
you know what? They probably are going to set up some sort of KOPW title match in this tournament. Unfortunately,
I mean, if we're looking at the that last weekend, Yano's last match is Yoshihashi, so that would be a candidate for a goofy singles something or other.
Well, speaking of Yoshihashi, he's the next guy we have.
No,
here.
I gotta tell you my most anticipated Toriano match.
Oh yeah, go for it.
So I've got two. I'm gonna break the rules. Number one, just for pure match quality, Zack Sabre Jr. because their G1 match, I don't know if it was last year or the year before. Like I remember just howling and loving that match. I think that was when Toriano was on his fair play kick and he was trying to go clean. Mm-hmm. And I love that match between him and ZSJ. I actually thought it was one of the better Yano matches ever in a G1. But the one I'm most anticipated for what I hope happens, him versus Evil, because I hate Evil and I think he's going to upset him. And I want to see him take those 2 points. And all these people that have been on this Evil kick all year long can just suck it.
I've got a couple of little Toriano facts that I should probably throw out there. So over the last 4 years, his average match length has been 4 minutes and 21 seconds, 6 minutes and 6 seconds in 2017. In 2018, it was 6 minutes and 40 seconds for what I believe to be a 10-year high. And then last year, he landed himself at 4 minutes and 55 seconds. So don't blink. You'll miss it. But you don't have to waste a ton of time with the shenanigans.
Right. It's going to be, very short. I'm sure most of his matches are probably openers or somewhere in the middle of the card kind of thing. So for me, I think I'm looking forward to the Sonata match. I feel like those two kind of have some kind of fun, goofy chemistry, and Sonata kind of likes to play around with him and kind of be a little bit goofy sometimes. And so I feel like that'll be a match that's kind of a lot of like roll-ups and kind of...
Didn't Sonata count him out, putting him in the Paradise Lock and leaving him outside?
I think he did, yeah.
I feel like that happened. Maybe I'm imagining it. I don't know.
Because wasn't that when he also like tied Rocky up too?
He tied up Rocky.
And like both of them were like out there like screaming or whatever.
Oh yeah. It was... Well, Sonata has beaten Toriano by countout twice. In both G1 2018 and 2017. So he skipped last year. I don't think they were in the same block, but
he's gonna get this. So
that's the story. Yeah,
again.
That's the story. And that's awesome.
Then you can set up a KOPW where Yano wants to vote no count out.
Yes.
Oh, what?
Jeremy, book it.
Storytelling, baby.
Call him
another
up.
stipulation that's not even a stipulation at all.
no count out.
So moving on to Yano's chaos mate here, Yoshihashi, fourth entry, first time in 2 years. He is 1/3 of the never openweight 6-man tag team champions.
Here's what I'll say. I don't love Yoshihashi, but I was pretty invested in his 6-man title run. That being said, the one time of the year that I actually like Yoshihashi is the 1 or 2 times he really turns it on during the G1. He always turns it on once or twice during the G1, and they're always fantastic matches. But other than that, there's nothing else to say. There's nothing else for me to say. Like, I have no analytics, like no insight. Yoshihashi's here. He wasn't here last year. He's back. He's going to have 1, 2, maybe we can hope for 3 really good performances, and he'll finish at the bottom. Near it, anyways.
Yoshihashi is a wrestler who is booked in the G1 Climax 30.
He is a jag of the G1.
As my girlfriend likes to say, he's a mess. When I showed her these blocks, she looked at the A block. She's like, "Wow!" And then she's like, "That B block, it's a mess." She's like, "Look at all the messes they got." Yoshihashi, it's a mess.
Yeah. There's not really much to say here. Like he's a good utility guy. Like they're gonna be like there's gonna be some kind of sneaky good matches. Like maybe him and Goto might end up being like sneaky good, or like maybe
I'll give you one. Him and Kenta will be sneaky good.
That's what I was gonna say next. Yeah, him and Kenta.
Yo, no, I flew my ass to New York City. And I sat through that Yoshihashi Kenta never openweight title match.
I forgot they wrestled last year.
I don't even remember that.
So, no. Hard no.
Oh my gosh.
I erased that from the record. It's going to suck again. It made me very upset. Not very upset. I had a great time. Loved that show. I had a great time.
How angry will you be if it actually is great and then you flew all the way there to see it be bad?
I just couldn't believe I was sitting through, and they worked a rest hold WWE match.
Yikes.
Yeah. I had a great time at that show. Don't get me wrong. I loved it, but that was the title match
When it started.
Oh yeah. Well, I watched. I was the newsbreaker, man. I'm the one who saw the stretcher get rolled in that they needed on staff. So, yeah. So no, I absolutely do not accept that Kenta will be a good match.
Yeah, I'm thinking Goto and Tanahashi are probably going to be his top options here.
The reality though, him and Goto or him and Juice could be really good. I think Goto and Juice are going to be like your top 2 utility guys in this block, personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're the best. Well, aside from Tanahashi, obviously, like they're the best at putting together matches.
But Tanahashi takes off nights in G1s nowadays. Like, he still has great tournaments, but they're like sneakily great because he takes a lot of off nights in the middle of the tournament where they're not bad, but they're not great either.
I mean, he goes straight from, while we're on it, right? He goes straight from Naito to Toru Yano. So, like, I actually think his schedule is kind of built for that this time in a way that's a little less obvious. So I'm just kind of looking at every other, right? So he's got Naito, Yano, Juice, Yoshihashi, and then you've got Kenta, Evil, and Goto.
Yeah, I think that a good job kind of spacing out some of those for him.
Yeah,
so.
the Kenta Evil Goto thing is a stretch, and then you got Sonata and Zack Sabre Jr. So,
like the thing that people forget and they didn't realize until after the fact was like the year that he won the G1 like 2 years ago. He didn't really have that great of a G1 until like he had a really good match with Suzuki. The rest of it was kind of really lax. He just was on the undercard picking up wins. And then at the very, very, very end of it, he had bangers with Okada and Ibushi. And then people were like, he's back.
Hey, that's good work if you can get it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about another, former winner and champion. Let's talk about Tetsuya Naito.
Yep, 11th entry, 11th consecutive. He is the current IWGP Intercontinental and Heavyweight Champion. He's won the G1 in 2013 and 2017.
Well, this is interesting. Anytime you're talking about the champion in the G1, you're talking about just so many different things because in the block, there's always the possibility that we mentioned of taking a loss, setting up other title shots. There's also the historical perspective that like the champions rarely win because the idea many times is to set up a potential challenger. Although Keiji Muto has won it, and I think Kensuke Sasaki has won it as well as champion, so it's not unprecedented. But since the introduction of the Wrestle Kingdom shot with the briefcase involved, the champion has not won. With 2020 being a really weird year, it is possible if, like, let's say hypothetically, you were Gato and you knew that you didn't book this man as strong as you possibly could before, and there's still money in him, and you really want to establish him and just do something different, maybe you have him win the tournament because if you're not going to like give him a really lengthy run, let's say the lengths of like a guy like Okada, obviously, or something like that, but you want to establish him as one of your preeminent guys, and he's already the double champion. I mean, that double championship does really signify something major. What if you did just have him win the G1 with both belts? That would be like this big feather in his cap that he always carries, always and forever. I'm not saying I anticipate it, but like it's not outside of the realm of possibilities.
I love that. I mean, I floated the idea of Naito winning this when I did the PW Torch Roundtable recently, and the prospective challenger then that Naito would pick, I think, would have to be Hiromu.
Right.
Oh yeah, that's something that people have speculated about. I didn't even think of that, but that does beg the question: what happens if he wins?
Right. So, and I think that a lot of people expected to see Hiromu in this tournament, and especially after the New Japan Cup, where the story since returning from the pandemic was that Hiromu's fighting heavyweights and winning some bigger matches. And so then you think like, okay, he lost the junior heavyweight championship, so you're going to put him in the G1, right? And then they didn't. And then the match with Naito at the anniversary show had gotten canceled. And I think that when that got canceled, and now there's still a lot of chatter about when can that match happen, I think that's a match that could do numbers. I don't know that it could fill a dome, but if you're talking about a half, right, you're talking about 25,000 instead of 50 or 40, you're in good shape with that matchup, especially with both of those guys really ascending. Hiromu ascending and Naito still being a real top star. So I don't know that I see that happening. It would be absolutely unprecedented, but I think that would be the biggest move they could make in a surprise.
Well, and I'll give it to you here in a second, Jeremy, but like I love what you just brought up, because think about it. The pre-COVID, just when we're allowed to have full audiences in attendance, we talked about it back then in like March when they were going to have this match, and we're like, are they giving away too big of a match at an anniversary show? What does the anniversary show do? 5,000-6,000, something like that? It's not that much. There is a lot of speculation. It's like, we don't know again what the Tokyo Dome is going to be. This would be literally the biggest glow up of a match. Like, we're kind of worried about them giving away a match that could have potentially sold out of Tokyo Dome. But instead, if you did this, you're A, making Hiromu, and B, you're taking something that you were willing to give away for 5,000 or 6,000 at the time, maybe 4,500, I don't know, and instead getting way more out of it, way more, and it has longer term impact. And I don't think Hiromu would even win that match, but it would be a bigger stage and statement for him. They would do huge business. It would be a big boost for him, and then Naito's reign would even be boosted even further, and he'd probably hold that belt to at least, I don't know, Sakura Genesis time, most likely, maybe New Beginning, I don't know, but that's not like the worst thing they could possibly do.
Right, and I agree with you guys. I think that's a great idea they could do. I mean, it's G1 30th G1. If you want to do something really kind of special and different to make G1 30 stand out, you have the double champion go to the finals and win the whole thing. And that can kind of, like you were mentioning earlier, Chris, you kind of felt like Naito needs, some kind of steam and get some momentum building after winning the titles back. And so what better way than to just have him win the tournament as a champion, like you mentioned, Josh, and kind of establish him as a guy that's just going to be his thing, like, the guy who won the tournament with the double titles, G1 30, it'll always be remembered as Naito's kind of thing. And so I think that would be an interesting thing. So I definitely think he is one of the favorites to win the block, even as a champion. And I think he's going to be one of the guys on that final night that has a high point total. And who's he facing off in the final night? Sonata. He's facing Sonata on the final night.
He is fighting Kenta, and that's the heretofore. Like, we haven't even talked about anyone that I think is realistically winning the tournament. Naito's the first real candidate that we've discussed in the block that can win, and he's fighting Kenta that night. And then the other big match is Sonata Evil. So I mean, you have to kind of keep those four in mind when you're talking about who's going to win the block.
Yeah, I mean, those are the four that I would say. I mean, you've got Tanahashi, Zack Sabre Jr. that night too.
But I think that has more tag implications.
Yeah, I agree, especially with the night before being Ibushi and Taichi. So, and also, I mean, Tanahashi, Zack Sabre Jr., like they're not building another feud there. They ran that one to death, so they'll keep that in the tag division probably just to keep it interesting. But yeah, I mean, and there's probably a scenario where Naito needs Sonata to beat Evil, and Kenta needs, and Evil needs Kenta to beat Naito, right? Like, I think there's some interplay there on that final night. So
there's so much interplay when you think about it. I mean, the fact Naito and Kenta had that big program earlier this year, and then you've got the dynamics of Bullet Club against LIJ, but then Evil is kind of part of that LIJ trifecta and all the history between those three guys. There's a lot. I know I was joking when I was talking about stories earlier, but there really is a lot
that's
of
the
that.
real deal.
That is what this block is built off of.
So most match looking forward to most for Naito?
Oh, I think, man, I mean, from a pure like match perspective, it's probably Tanahashi just because we haven't seen it in so long. But from a story perspective, and not far off from a match perspective, I gotta say Sonata.
Yeah, I was going to jump in with Sonata. I think that's the most interesting of the matches, and I think it could be the best in ring too, depending on what Tanahashi and Naito can do 3 years out from their great run.
Yeah, I think Tanahashi match, and then also I think Hiroki Goto could be another kind of sneaky good match that he could have in the tournament.
Remember that time they had a match that like you gave 3 stars and I loved for some weird reason, and it wasn't that good, but I just loved it. It was in the G1 like a year or 2 ago.
What, Naito and Goto?
Yeah, and it was like it wasn't even that, like, I can admit it wasn't that good, but for some reason I was like, man, they told a story.
I don't remember.
It was just like some undercard match. It was like, I don't know, 12, 15 minutes, and I just loved it, and no one else liked it. Like, it's got like, I don't know, 3 stars on Cage Match.
So let's move on to the next guy here. Sonata, 5th entry, 5th consecutive. What are we thinking for Sonata here?
Well, Sonata, the odds makers over in England have him favored 2-1 as the odds-on favorite to actually win the entire shebang, which is, I don't know, kind of surprising to me, because I think him winning the block is not outside of the realm of possibilities, but winning the whole entire G1, it seems kind of crazy to me, especially with the idea that him and Naito are fighting each other in the same block seems super unlikely. So I don't know about those odds, but I mean, Sonata has always had great G1s, always, but he's always been in the block with a lot of killers, kind of like Juice Robinson. So he doesn't have the same cast of players to play off of, and he is a guy that we have said historically plays up to the level of his competition. So I don't see him going out there and just like killing it every night. I think he'll be one of the better B block performers, match wise, but I don't think he'll have like this renaissance, tournament. But as far as points, he's going to be alive on the final night. He might win the block. The stuff between him and Naito, him and Kenta, and him and Evil are going to like tell a huge story, big time.
I think if Sonata wins the block, we're going to get another Sonata Okada final. I think that would be the obvious choice there. Sonata winning the tournament, I don't know. I mean, like, I don't know that Sonata's that big a star. I know people love him in Japan. I know that is absolutely a part of this too. And the perception of Sonata is much higher there than I think anywhere else. But that's their bread and butter. Like, that's where they operate. So, his series with Okada has been renowned, especially over there in the media as well as with fans. And some of those matches are good. And I really enjoyed the G1 Sonata Okada match last year, but I don't see a lot of great matches for Sonata in this block. I just don't know that he matches up really well with any of these guys.
ZSJ.
Yeah, ZSJ. I mean, he's the one that I would say, like, they've had good matches in the past. They will have a good match here. They're interesting. They're fun. They work different styles each time. But other than that, like, there's not a ton on paper that I'm excited about, but he's a solid wrestler. But I think you're right. I think he's going to be in contention. He may be in contention to win the thing, which might create a weird dynamic with him and Naito, even if he just wins the block. So, and that's, you always need some inter-LIJ, dissension. And we haven't really gotten that on the build-up to the G1 this year because we didn't know the blocks. So, yeah, that's kind of all I got.
2 quick questions, because I know you said that's all you got, but I think there's some more you could probably add here. He's fighting Evil on the final night. That's a big deal. Obviously, past tag team partners, the whole dissension. We never really saw Sonata's whole take on the Evil departure the way that we did from Naito and Hiromu. The other thing, oh man, I forgot what it was. I had something else that was like really good here, but I kind of forgot. But yeah, just add there, I guess.
I mean, he's 2-1 against Evil all time, but all of that has been, inter-LIJ. So I think the fact that they put that on the last night means that it's going to be meaningful, and that's the story they're going to tell, is like, how did Sonata feel about all this? So I don't remember any of their matches though. Like, I don't think any of them were especially memorable, even if they were kind of this inter-LIJ story plots.
I know what the other one was. There are a lot of people speculating that the same way that there were speculations that the New Japan Cup final might wind up being Sonata, Jay White pre-COVID. There's a lot of people who are speculating that final. Is that something that you guys see as being a realistic, possibility, or what are you guys thinking about that?
I mean, there's definitely a chance. We talked about the chances of Jay White sneaking into the finals, and with Sonata being in this B block, that's a weaker block. There are a lot of guys in here I could see him beating, and I could see him getting to the finals. And so I think that is a possible final. That's not the finals that I want to see. I don't think that's the best possible matchup. I don't think Sonata is the best option to win the block or even win the whole tournament. I just feel like we've seen what the main event Sonata looks like. And yes, some of the Okada matches were great. I mean, I wasn't the biggest fan of their whole series. And so I just don't know if he's that guy you really want to try and push in the Tokyo Dome, especially with, already facing Naito in this block. That's going to be a match that is not protected now and something we would have seen just a few months ago. So I don't know. I don't know where those odds are really coming from the bet makers there. So, yeah, I'm not in favor of Sonata winning, but I do think he's going to do very well just because of who's in this block with him. And I do think that match with Evil on the final night is going to be a big determiner. Like you guys mentioned, like that interplay, like he needs to beat Evil for either Naito to get in, or if he beats Evil, that's going to be his ticket into the final kind of thing. And so that's going to be a very important matchup. But for his best match, like you guys mentioned, I think Zack Sabre Jr. is his best, like, bell-to-bell opponent in this block, and I really enjoy their matches, and so that's the match that I'm looking forward to here.
There's always him and Goto, too.
Yeah, that could be good as well. So anything else on Sonata?
Nope.
So let's move on to Zack Sabre Jr., fourth entry, fourth consecutive, one half of the IWGP Tag Team Champions.
It's interesting because, we're a far cry away from the days of like Zachy 3 belts or, the long tenured Rev Pro champion as he was even just say earlier this year. Now we're kind of at a point where like Zach's not really doing indie dates. He's not really doing, the UK stuff. He's kind of just signed to New Japan and resigned to wherever they're slotting him and placing him at that point. And he's got all the talent in the world. I mean, if someone wanted to push him to win a G1 or be in a G1 final, I wouldn't be opposed to it whatsoever. But the fact that he is an IWGP Tag Team Champion this year, and given the trajectory that they placed him on this year, it doesn't feel like this is the year they're going to do it, if ever, which I don't even know if they're ever going to do that. But, they gave him the big spot in the New Japan Cup a couple years ago. That was like his big push, but we've never really seen that in a G1. He is always a fantastic competitor when it comes to G1 season, though. That is one thing. He always delivers. I think, we talked about like utility guys. We talked about Goto and Juice, but one thing we kind of, discounted is Zach. And maybe it's because we're so resigned to seeing him wrestle tag matches where we're going to see him get to like kind of stretch his wings out and work a lot of singles matches with a lot of guys. He might give a lot of these guys their best match of the tournament, just because it's the B block. But that's about it. Like, I think he'll actually finish with less points than he normally does, personally, just because of the way it's booked and because he's a tag champ.
So Zack Sabre Jr., here's just a little fun fact of the entire tournament, the entire G1 tournament. Zack Sabre Jr. has the most singles matches on record of this entire class. So, and with a lot, I mean, like he's got 741 singles matches on record at Cage Match. Tanahashi is second with 541, and Suzuki third behind that with 491. And like the New Japan records on Cage Match are very complete.
Yeah.
So these are,
but Zach's are probably not.
Zach's may not be, right? So isn't that something? But
he probably has a lot more singles matches.
He may. So these are just singles matches too. So I mean, but that tells me that Zach he's worked a lot for a long time. So maybe this run in the tag division is him kind of taking a little rest, right? So but I'm excited. I like Zack Sabre Jr. matches. I think he always brings something a little bit different to the table. I don't know that now's the time to kind of push him, to the roof. And I think you may be right. This may be a down year for him in the G1, but I think he's someone that they could heat up later down the line. But I don't think now's his time.
Yeah, and Zach's another guy, another great tournament wrestler, and does really well in these single elimination tournaments, these block tournaments, and so I think he's going to have a great performance. And I do think, like you mentioned, Josh, one thing that could be hindering him here is the fact that he is one half of the tag team champions. But again, I look at this block, and I see there's a lot of guys I could easily see him beating, and they really haven't done a big push of him since that New Japan Cup in 2018, where he just went rough shot and just beat all those aces in that tournament. And so I'm not saying he's going to go on a crazy run here, but I mean I could see him beating Juice, Goto, Yano, Sonata. Like I could see him at least getting a minimum of 10 points.
Ooh, see, normally I would agree with you, but remember last year they knocked him out super early?
Right.
Yeah, 8 points last year.
He ended up with 8 points, but he was mathematically eliminated so early. I'm not saying he's going to get eliminated early, but like just given his positioning, I think he gets knocked out. I don't think he's ended up with 5 wins. I just don't.
He had 12 points the year before.
Right. And I think he's going down because of where he's at.
Right.
I think every year he's gone down a little bit. Maybe next year will be a better year for him, but I don't think this is his year.
It's a little interesting because they've never established him with like an actual New Japan title either.
Right.
Nope.
Yeah.
Right. So like I think that's the next step for him is to get into one of the singles title pictures, build himself up as a New Japan guy and then maybe have a good run with a G1.
I'll tell you what my most anticipated match for him is, though. And I don't know if it might not be a first-time match. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I just can't quite remember them ever fighting. Him and Kenta, man. Have they ever fought?
I've got them at 1-1, but I don't have the matches written down here. But I feel like one of them was a long time ago.
I can't wait for that. In a G1, that sounds fantastic. It's one of the only really highly anticipated Kenta matches I have.
It sounds good, but it's also a potential for shenanigans.
Jeremy, stop, please.
Oh, they fought in the A block last year.
Did they?
That's right.
Yeah, and then before that, they fought in Noah in 2011.
Yeah, see, I figured they could have fought in Noah. I forgot they wrestled last year. Jeremy's trying to rain on my parade, talk about shenanigans, Bullet Club, Suzuki-gun. No, they're going to man up, code of honor. They're going to shake each other's hands at the beginning of the match.
They're actually going to do a pure rules.
Yeah, they're
pure
going to
rules.
a pure match.
By the time Kenta and ZSJ wrestle, ZSJ is actually going to be the provisional champion, and it's going to be contested under pure rules.
I feel like their match last year was okay.
It might have been.
Oh, Meltzer did 4.5 stars.
Yeah, but he be overrating.
A cage match has it at 8.5, so that's 4.25.
That's 4.25. That's pretty good.
That's pretty good on 153 votes. So that must have been a pretty good match.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Sonata for Zach as well. I like those matchups, and I just think from bell to bell, that could possibly be his best matchup here.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm curious what they'll do with the Naito match, so I'll say Naito. Zach's not a guy that I think wins the G1, but he could win on a fluke against Naito and be the guy that has the obvious Naito's going to win challenge.
You know, the funny thing, you bring up Naito. Naito's been criticized for not performing up to the levels that he used to in the past, but like him and Zach always have really good matches. Like for whatever reason, they've got great chemistry. So I wouldn't be surprised. The funny thing is like none of us are talking about Tanahashi, and it's really funny because that whole entire like rivalry, they had nothing but great matches, but they just overdid it and everyone got so tired of it that they're like, no one wants to see it, but they were all like 4-star matches.
Yeah, they overdid it really quickly too.
Yeah,
it's kind of the thing. It just like it kept going back to it.
And then it's like a year later, they've like let it breathe, and we still don't want to see it. And it's going to be a 4-star match
on the last night.
Yeah,
well, I guess part of it's just we just ended up seeing Golden Aces and Dangerous Techers. So that's probably why.
Yeah. So
those guys have fought 22 times this year in various multi tags and all that. So like, it's only been the 2-on-2 matches, but they've been in every multi-man with each other since the beginning of time.
Yeah, we've got a lot of Tanahashi and Sabre this year.
It's a lot.
Well, we've got Kenta coming in next. This is his second entry into the G1, second consecutive, and he is the number one contender for the IWGP United States Heavyweight Champion, and he has the right to challenge that holder because he's got a briefcase and it's red and it says he can challenge.
And we had to have a question here from Reddit user, why did you do that, bro? So we all totally want Kenta to win the G1 and fuse the U.S. heavyweight briefcase with the G1 briefcase, right?
No, I want him to carry both briefcases around all year, just like he's Naito.
No, I don't want that. That's all I'll say about it.
But it would be great. He could defend both briefcases at what's the next one? Power Struggle?
Yeah.
Yeah, he can defend both briefcases, so they earn the right to challenge both champions.
and then we have a triple title match at Wrestle Kingdom.
Three titles, and now it's called the Triple Crown.
Triple Gold Dash.
I feel like someone's already done this.
Sounds very familiar.
Very familiar.
No, it's not a Triple Crown. It's a Triple Gold Dash. It's different.
Oh,
okay.
Because they're dashing.
Oh man, it's so funny because last year Kenta, we were like just so excited, like collectively, all of us, the fandom, we were just like so excited, and then a year later, we're at such a different place. I feel like, not to say that people are like down on him, but it's just not anywhere near like what it was. I would say Kenta's year's been, and when I talk about year, I mean from last G1 to now, very inconsistent. You're talking about like super high highs, super low lows. There's some people that just love the guy. There's some people that literally hate the guy. I remember last year people were calling him Noah Trash. So I don't know what to expect here. I don't know how motivated Kenta is coming into this. I think he's one of the biggest question marks in the B block. Totally.
I know that the Japanese fan base was really excited when he got announced.
This year?
Yeah. So
Awesome.
he's gotten himself over with that crowd on places like Twitter and through his backstage promos. So I think by getting back into Japan and getting into this G1, where I think this version of Kenta is more suited for a tournament than kind of the ambiguous aligned with Shibata Kenta that was in last year's tournament. So I'm excited. I think that I really liked his match with Naito, even though it started off slow in a new beginning, but it turned out to be quite the match, and the blood helped. But I think that there's probably some good matches here to be had with Kenta. I'm just wondering if we're gonna get Kenta the shenanigans guy or Kenta the wrestler or somewhere in between, because too much Bullet Club shenanigans with Evil and Kenta both on the same card every night is gonna be a struggle.
Yeah, I do think it's gonna be good to get him in front of a crowd again, because obviously on Strong and Empty Arena he's still trying to do these kind of heat things to generate heat with no crowd, and so I definitely think he's gonna come off better in that perspective with having a crowd there and getting some heat that way. I think, you brought up a good point, Chris. Which Kenta are we going to see? Are we going to see the Kenta that we saw in the G1 last year, who had some really good matches and was, fighting straight up, or are we going to get this kind of shenanigans, low blow, powder that we've been seeing on NJPW Strong in the feud with Jeff Cobb? And so I'm hoping, obviously he's still going to powder and cheat. He's Bullet Club, but I'm hoping that we still get some more kind of straight up matches. And I remember the Tanahashi match being really good last year, and I think that's probably going to be the potential to be his best match in this block.
Well, remember last year I loved the Okada match like way more than everybody else. I thought it was like near 5 stars, and a lot of people did not agree. But it's an interesting case with Kenta, because you're like, okay, well, he's set to challenge Jon Moxley, so your conventional wisdom would think he's not in line for any sort of big title shots, but then we don't know when Jon Moxley, from a political standpoint with the relationship between the two different companies, when that even is going to happen. And then the fact that he is set to fight Naito on the final night is very telling. It's like I think conventional wisdom, you look at it and people would probably think like, okay, Evil Sonata final night, that's the final. But then you're like, but he's fighting Naito, so does that mean he could potentially be getting a title shot down the line? Or is he going to be a pin eater that sets up Naito to like win the block? Like, this is the placement of it all is very precarious. And I don't know what to make of it. That's why I call him like a big question mark. It's not that I question his abilities, because he showed, even if he's not the same Kenta of years ago, he still showed he can go and everything of that nature. I just don't know what to expect here. I don't know if he's a serious contender. I think he'll end up with a lot of points, but maybe he's getting a title shot out of this. Maybe he could win the block. I really don't know. I mean, we've talked about how winning the block doesn't mean you're going to win the tournament, but he might not be a bad candidate to be a B block finalist.
Yeah, I mean, once again, this block, I think this block actually has a chance for a lot of parity booking as well. I just feel like there's so many guys that I could see him beating in this block. I could see him beating Juice, Goto, Yano, Yoshihashi, potentially even beating like Sabre. And so I think he's going to do well in the tournament, especially facing off against Naito on that last night and after the rivalry they had here. I'm not very confident in him winning overall the tournament. He could definitely be a B block finalist, especially if the A block guy is going to end up winning the whole thing. But I think he's going to be at the top of the block, but I'm not confident he's going to get to the finals. He's also a guy that you can heat him up and you could go with him, and that can be another story, because they did that at the end of Wrestle Kingdom. They decided they were going to go with Kenta, and they heated him up, and he's over with the Japanese fan base, and he can be a dastardly heel. So in that scenario, I don't think he wins the tournament by any means, but I think he can be a player for sure.
And I think there's also a scenario where he throws the U.S. title briefcase aside and says, that's not what I was trying to do. Because he's a heel. He can do, something that's disrespectful.
It was promised to me.
Yeah. And then he beat Jeff Cobb to carry on. So I don't know. I mean, like I'm very curious to see how much shenanigans and interference and whatnot we're getting from the Kenta matches. Same way I am with the Jay White matches. Like, we know that Evil and Yujiro are going to be full of that. So I'm hopeful that the other two are, lean towards the middle.
Yeah. So I know I said Tanahashi for my match. Who are you guys looking forward to for Kenta?
Ooh. I didn't. No negativity here. I was going to talk about matches I didn't like with him in the past. I did really enjoy the Tanahashi match last year. Kenta and Tanahashi faced off when Kenta was still a quote unquote face, and we sort of got that moment at the end of the match where there was a lack of respect. I don't remember how it played out, but was it Kenta wouldn't like shake Tanahashi's hand? Is that what it was?
I think it was Tanahashi that didn't want to shake Kenta's hand, I think.
Something of that nature. So now Kenta's healed, Tanahashi's still the ace. I think that's going to be an interesting, I don't even know if they're going to tell that story, but it's in the back of my mind, so I can't wait to, and those guys are from the same generation. That's kind of always been a dream match. We're getting it again, I don't care if it's, 17 years too late, whatever.
I'm curious what they do with Kenta and Juice again. I think they had a classic rivalry in 2014 and 2015 around the Florida Armories, and
I was like, when?
and I'm curious if they'll address that in their backstage promos. I know we joked earlier about nobody's gonna watch them, but I think if they do, especially with those two characters, they could tie that together pretty well and probably have a pretty good match. That's a match we haven't seen in serious circumstances.
And I think with Juice, too, obviously Juice is always in that U.S. title picture. You could have Juice beat Kenta. Then at Power Struggle, you have Kenta defend the briefcase against Juice, and then the winner faces Mox at Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah, I love that.
That's some good booking. The funny thing about Juice, every year he has one or two, let's just be realistic, probably about one match that is like literally upper tier, but because it's like Juice and it's in the middle of the G1 and it's on an undercard, everyone forgets about it. Like last year, him and Ishii had this banger that I was like, holy shit. And then like 2 weeks later, no one remembered it. So maybe him and Kenta have something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. So let's talk about our last guy here in the B block, the former double IWGP champion, the King of Darkness, Evil, 5th entry, 5th consecutive.
Okay.
I'm so tired of talking about Evil.
We are too, and it's funny. I've mentioned it before. Like when I was in like history class growing up, we used to have this like teacher where like if you brought up like the war, you could get him like to completely negate the entire like class and just talk about that, and then like we'd pretty much get away with like not getting homework or anything. That's sort of been Evil for me this year. Like people ask us questions about Evil and I get so worked up that like I just rant and rave and like go off on tangents and like freak out about Evil because I like get pissed. So like I think we're tired of talking about him too. All of that aside, most of the time, historically speaking, when somebody was given a first-time title win and then had the title taken off of them prior to the G1, they usually don't win that G1. At least in the last, like, decade anyways. The one guy that they didn't do that with was, like, Okada. I don't think Evil is going to be getting the Okada treatment here. So my personal feelings, he could win the block. He's going to win. He's going to end up getting a lot of points. I don't know how good his matches will be, but he's not winning the G1.
Yeah.
And that's nothing personal about it. Just historically speaking, That's what's happening here. He's either losing the G1 to somebody or probably losing the block.
Yeah, I could definitely see him winning the B block, and if Okada wins, you could run back Okada and Evil, and Okada gets his win back on Evil to go to the main event of Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we've ever seen someone win New Japan Cup and the G1 in the same year, and I don't think Evil's the guy that they're gonna strap that to. So, I mean, I'm not.
That's a good point. I didn't even think of that.
I'm not super worried about Evil. I think Evil will be a player in the last night. I'm not super worried about it, even if he wins the block. But I also don't think that they're gonna keep going back to that well. I can't imagine they're that committed to Evil on the main event, like at the main event level. So I have to imagine that the 30-minute time limit is also going to play into Evil's strengths, I guess, or play against his weaknesses. Because I think a lot of the complaints about the Evil matches were that they were just so long and drawn out, and you knew they were going to end with interference. So I think we're going to see a lot of that. I think that there's not a ton on paper that makes me excited about Evil matches right now, especially with the shenanigans. But like I said, I'm not super worried about them going back to the Evil well with another like tournament win. Maybe a block, maybe it's him and Okada, but then you certainly know how that's going to end.
Right. Yeah, and I think as far as like matchups, I think probably the Sonata matchup for me would probably just be the most interesting, because now it's not like an LIJ thing. Like they're enemies now in opposite factions. It's on the last night, and there's going to be a lot of stakes behind that match, and I think that could probably there's not a ton of guys besides that match that I'm really looking forward to. And I know him and Goto have traditionally had pretty decent matches, and that could be a pretty good match. Maybe the Tanahashi match could be pretty good, but I'm just picturing all the shenanigans, all the interference, Dick Togo coming out and choking people out. So I don't think we're going to get a lot of great stuff here. But something I want to point out, too, of Evil not having a ton of main events, I think that could be a sign that he could be another guy similar to Jay White, where they kind of could sneak their way into the finals.
Yeah, he's only in 2 main events, I think, is the number. So, but he's in a lot of semi-mains. So he's still in the conversation for sure.
So, Josh, who are you looking forward to seeing Evil wrestle?
What's my most anticipated Evil match?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll just say Sonata for the story. I was kind of catching the gist of what you guys were saying there, and with everything that we've seen from Evil this year and all the interference and the inevitable Dick Togo stuff, I don't really have anything I'm excited about personally, but at least, and it's not like I love him in his matches with Sonata, but at least there's a story there, and it's on the final night. There'll probably be some drama, and maybe at least we might not get so much shenanigans because it's an important match, hopefully. So that's my answer. But there's a good chance we get a Jay White 2018-esque run from him.
Yeah, not looking forward to that.
I hope Naito just beats the hell out of him.
Yeah.
And just wins clean. No shenanigans. 10, 12 minutes, call it a day.
Yeah,
I don't feel like that's happening. I feel like there's a good chance he gets his win back. I don't know.
Ugh, that means we get another defense.
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm hoping for a Luke Harper or Brody Lee squash, like what happened to Cody, and just Naito just bum rushes him, just gets him out of there. So that wraps up the previews of all the competitors in the blocks. We have some G1 questions I think we should get through pretty quickly. Just kind of rapid fire.
Quick.
Yeah, super quick rapid fire answers, and we're running long. And so I know there were some other shows to talk about, but we're not going to get to them this week. And I know there's some off-topic questions. We're not going to get to those. So we're going to end with these G1 questions and the recommended match of the week, and then we will wrap this thing up here. So first question comes from Viking Payne. Any info on how Jay White and Jeff Cobb got into Japan? Ospreay and Juice have residency in Japan, and Kenta is a Japanese citizen, so all three were eligible to be brought back. But as far as I know, Jay and Cobb aren't residents. Did Jay travel to Japan via New Zealand? Did Cobb do the same from Guam?
So everything that I've heard about this is that, and I've heard this from Japanese residents, is that there's a lot of different ways to get into the country right now. So, and one of those is basically being brought in by your employer. So, the citizenship, that was all pretty straightforward. I know that New Japan is super invested in Jay White, and I've heard through the grapevine that they're super invested in Jeff Cobb. So I would imagine that they got through on something like an employment visa. So I think that they both came straight from America. My understanding is that residents of Guam actually get an American passport that has a special page in it that explains their citizenship. So with Guam. So, but what it sounds most like to me is that those guys just got in based on, New Japan investing in them and crossing the T's and dotting the I's that they needed to.
We are not the podcast that had the scoop on the the foreigners making their way into the tournament. That would be the other guys. But I'm glad that they're all here. Chris did a great job there. I wish Toa Hanare was in this tournament. That's the only thing I'll say.
Yeah. And we have seen that, we've heard rumors about, Japanese government stopping and allowing people to get into the country. So maybe that's true. Maybe they have that power to get who they want in the country. So
last week I thought Will Ospreay might not even be in the tournament based off of Rev Pro. So I clearly don't know what I'm talking about.
If only somebody would have told you those shows are taped.
They were taped 2 months ago.
Jeremy told me that, but I wasn't sure he was accurate because Cage Match had it listed as live.
Oh, that's because no one knows the date they were taped. They were very secretive, but it was quite a while ago.
Next question here from Reddit user Bravo Tango Zulu. Said last year I asked about Goto and Ishii sharing a block for years. This year I asked you, why would the IWGP community take this match away from us?
I don't know. I love that match. I'm sad we're not going to get it, but we'll get it at some point in the future. So
I was
going to
say they will definitely go back to it at some point.
Yeah. Also asked, does the fact that Taichi versus Suzuki happens in Hokkaido affect Taichi's chances of winning? Do Sonata's chances increase against Naito since the match is happening in Nagata Prefecture? Nagita.
Those are both. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say yes for Sonata. I think it increases his chances.
I think those are both really good possibilities. I can't say for sure, but those are little caveats to kind of look out for.
Yeah, especially in the whole Suzuki Taichi thing, if they're definitely kind of fueling the fire to a potential Taichi takeover, a big win over Suzuki in his hometown could mean something. Next question's from Ready the Rainbow and Slam Pig. How much do you think the long layoffs with minimal work are going to impact the ability of some of the foreign talent to hang over the entirety of the G1 tournament?
It's a wrinkle, for sure. I think it's a part of the story that they'll tell. Maybe some of those guys will start slow. Some of those guys might not have the stamina. So I think that you hit the nail on the head of one of the stories they're going to tell throughout the course of the tournament.
This tournament is unlike any G1 that we've had in the past just because of COVID. And, we don't know what to expect. There's a lot of guys that have been active for a while, and there's some guys that haven't been. And, I'm not a wrestler, but as someone who's in training, I can tell you that, there's no way you can prepare for wrestling other than actually wrestling, So depending on what kind of preparation those guys have been doing on their downtime, their off season, it's going to be very telling, it just is.
Yeah, definitely. It'll be something to look out for and to see how those guys end up performing and how that affects them. He also asked, we were getting Naito versus Tanahashi as a block match in B block. Do you think it's surprising that we're getting what seems like such a protected match this way?
No. because of where it's placed. It's placed as a really big match to kick off the tournament with, maybe a big upset, maybe just a great match.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's going to be potential to set up that power struggle title match. And so we haven't seen it in a few years, and kind of doing it twice, boom, boom, kind of get your money's worth out of it. And so I think that's kind of what they were thinking there.
Previously, I would have said it was surprising, and I think we probably would have got it earlier in the year. I think this would have been a perfect match for like a Dantaku or something like that, had everything played out the way that I thought it should have, but it didn't. And because it didn't, I'm not surprised. They need a big money-making match in a big building on the first night like they're doing here, and this one makes all the sense in the world. I don't know if they're going to do the booking Jeremy just outlined, but if they do, that's a great way to kind of maximize your bang for the buck. So,
it also says Evil versus Sonata is on the closing night of B block. Do you think the result of the match is going to be what ultimately determines the B block winner?
I think that's a possibility.
Yeah, we kind of talked about that, and I feel like there's definitely a chance that that's going to be a big factor in that B block.
I kind of agree, but I think you guys kind of sold me on the idea of maybe Naito winning this shit.
It could happen.
Good thing our next question's about it.
Yeah, from Reddit user DGraw69. What's more likely, Ishii winning his block or Naito winning the whole tournament?
Naito winning the entire tournament is much more likely than Ishii winning a block, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Reddit user just a little bear 01. Who do you think will score less points in this year's G1, Yujiro or Yoshihashi? It's got to be Yujiro, right?
I mean, if I was betting on it, yeah, it's Yujiro.
I agree, but it might just be a push.
Yeah, a push at 4.
Highest Fly Flow says, who does the G and G1 stand for this year? Like when they say the G and G1 is golden for Ibushi, every year they've got fun new ones. Any new ones can you come up with?
It's too late to come up with some new ones tonight.
G is for juice.
Yeah, let's go with that. Kevin Crawford asks, what are the chances of an Ibushi versus Kenta G1 final?
0.
Yeah,
I would love it, but I think it's unlikely.
Yeah, it seems highly unlikely.
Oh yeah, Kenta Ibushi. That was that match that I saw last year live that I was kind of disappointed by.
Next question from Rich Latta. He says, why do you think Gato puts together what are seemingly imbalanced blocks? The B block will produce good matches, I'm sure, but do you think there's some type of strategy behind this?
Yeah, I think the strategy is A block is for your in-ring wrestling fans and B block is for your story guys. So I actually think it almost makes more sense because you're not kind of mixing priorities.
Rich, you're acting like this is some sort of like surprise. I mean, Raw and SmackDown. SmackDown's the wrestling show, and Raw's the wrestling show, or the story show. I mean, that's basically what we're getting here. A block is SmackDown, and B block is Raw. I mean,
they wrestle on those shows.
So does that mean that the B block's gonna have an underground?
Yes. You said the B block, right?
Yeah.
That's King of Pro Wrestling.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
But in all seriousness, I think, we were very excited when New Japan first came back, and it did come back, but very limited. And a lot of the key players and key components, things we love about New Japan, they weren't all totally here. And the A block is sort of like, it's almost like they're flexing a little bit. Like they put together this incredible block, and it's like, okay, yeah, we weren't like fully operating at the level that we're used to, but here you guys go. Like you're getting it. And for all you people that liked what we did earlier in the year since we've returned, you're getting more of that in the B block. So it's like they got something for everybody.
Yeah. Next question from Rachel Patton. What match from each block are you dreading, and which match do you think could be better than expected?
Any match that I'm dreading is gonna involve Evil. Just 'cause I'm super burnt out on him, and I can't even pinpoint exactly what, but I there's not going to be a card where the evil match shows up and I like perk up. So yeah, what was the other? Oh, could be better than expected. I mean, any of the Jay White matches, honestly, because he's been so full of interference and things of the sort. If he leaves that behind, I think he can surprise some people with some really good in-ring stuff.
For me, I'm dreading Yujiro versus Taichi, just for the hot mess that could be, and what I think could be better than expected. I think Taichi and Shingo could end up being a banger.
For me, in the A block, I don't want to see Yujiro and Okada again. I saw it so many times this year, and it was awful. So no, I don't want to see it ever again. In the B block, just like, I don't know, Evil against Yoshihashi sounds like the shits. One match that, and I mentioned it earlier, but I think for some reason, I think Suzuki and Jeff Cobb is something that is kind of could be a lot better than people are anticipating.
Yeah. Next question from 8-Bit Suplex. Who are the names not in the tournament that you wish were here?
I think a lot of people were hoping for, because of the open weight nature of how New Japan got booked this year, they're hoping for some dads or maybe even some juniors, but I'm completely fine with how everything ended up. Would I have liked a Kojima or a Hanare? Yes. But at the same time, like, the way that the year progressed, not everyone had the luxury to like build up to prepare themselves for a G1 like that. So maybe Hiromu or Desperado might have been some of the open weight names that could have, made it, but it's really hard to make an argument that Yujiro's like probably the one guy that you can make an argument against, but everyone else pretty much deserves to be in this tournament.
Yeah, I think the only thing the tournament's missing from me on my end is a first timer, and probably in place of Yujiro. So, but I don't. It probably would have been Hanare. That would have been my bet if things had gone the way you imagine they would have gone. Starting at the beginning of the year, you started to see him being placed with a little bit more weight behind him. So, but I mean, I couldn't be happier with the lineup that we ended up with. So this is there were no surprises on the negative side really for me.
Yeah, I think maybe one guy that I would have liked to see was Sho, just with how they're building him up with Ishii these last couple of weeks, and that would have been a great addition to have, and have those guys in the same block and have a block match. But like you said, I think for the most part, both blocks look really good. Everybody in there should be in there except for maybe Yujiro, and so there's not much you could have done there. So, but overall, happy with the tournament. Question from Ricky: which match from either block excites you the most overall?
Well, for me, it's got to be Okada and Shingo, and we've already kind of talked about it, but that's it for me.
I'll take Kota and Shingo then. So Jeremy, good luck.
I'm with Josh. I'm a Okada Shingo.
Nice.
At Oscar Rooney, what percentage can you give me for a Naito win and chooses Hiromu as his opponent for Wrestle Kingdom?
I didn't even know people were talking about this. Like, this is crazy. I don't want to say it's super high, but like, I don't know. I'm not good at percentages. What do you guys think?
12.
Yeah, I was gonna say like 10.
Yeah, like a 1 in 8, 8-1, which is actually pretty good considering he would have to. He's also the champ that would win, and then he would have to then choose Hiromu, which is I think is the obvious play, but he could just come out and choose Okada. I don't know.
Yeah. And no.
Well, he might not have to choose anybody from the tournament if he beats everybody.
He just runs roughshod right through it.
If he beat everybody in the tournament, not only would he be the double champion, but he literally went undefeated in the tournament. I don't know if that's ever been done.
It hasn't.
That'd be freaking huge. And then he would be well within his rights to give the title shot to Romo.
Something I didn't bring up, and I hate to keep us even longer, but do you think there's a chance that Naito goes to a draw and then that person challenges for the IC?
I think
like as a way to, I don't know, split them up or have Naito defend them separately.
we've talked about that in depth on other episodes. I think it's too late to do that right now. I think you just need to keep them together until at least Wrestle Kingdom, because it would be stupid at this point to split them up.
Yeah, at this point they've come this far, right?
Yeah. And so I know we had a few more questions here, but just so we're running really long here on time, so we'll get to these at another time. Thank you guys for listening. We just want to let you know our G1 30 Pick'em contest is live. You can visit socialsuplex.com. The entry form is there on the homepage. Great grand prize package for you. You got a Keeping It Strong Style t-shirt. You have a G-Shock Gorillas collaborative watch worth $189, and you also get to be get a guest spot here on Keeping It Strong Style. You can pick any episode you want within the calendar year and be our third man here. You could be the Chris Samsa on a future episode. So
also, my girlfriend says, if hypothetically a female wins this tournament because she thought that our G-Shock watch was too masculine and maybe a little non-feminist, she will have an alternative prize ready to go for any female listeners that want an alternative prize.
Boom, look at that. That sounds good. And so one last thing before we go, the recommended match of the week. Chris, I believe you have a recommended match for us.
I do. So it's from August 17th, 2003. It was the G1 Climax final. Jun Akiyama versus Hiroyoshi Tenzan. I recently did an episode of Wrestling Omakase behind John Carroll's paywall on the Patreon, and they had me watch this match, and it blew me away. Tenzan looked awesome. He did a moonsault. Like this, the room is hot. The story with Akiyama coming over and being kind of the foreign invader to New Japan it's just awesome. Really, really hot building. Very exciting match. Tenzan looks amazing. He almost looks like he's got a little Ishii in him, kind of a bowling ball running around doing crazy stuff. So absolutely a match worth your time. And again, it's a G1 Climax final, so it's a hot room. Really, really fun watch.
Nice.
Absolutely. Looking forward to rewatching that match personally. Last week's match was Devitt and Okada from Kazuna Road 2013. I won't give you guys a full review, but 4.25. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. Spoiler alert, Prince Devitt never wins the IWGP title, so.
Well, Chris, I want to thank you so much for taking the time and jumping on here with us today and breaking down G130. Please give the listeners your plugs and where they can find you online.
Best place to find me is at sportofprowrestling.com. Anything that I do, I'll put a link up there. I'll be doing daily audio previews on the Voices of Wrestling podcasting network. And I'll be doing daily written previews either at Sport of Pro Wrestling or at Voices of Wrestling. So Twitter, the Chris Samsa, TheChrisSamsa. I love coming on Keeping It Strong Style. It's my favorite podcast I get to do. I know we joked a little earlier that I've been doing kind of the gauntlet of audio, but this one was the one circled on my calendar first. So I appreciate you guys.
And it touches my heart.
Well, that's going to wrap things up for this week. Guys, make sure you check out our partner, manscaped.com. Use the promo code SUPLEX to get 20% off and free shipping on your order. That's 20% off and free shipping, manscaped.com, using the promo code SUPLEX. Next week, we'll be back to review nights 1 and 2 of the G1 Climax. So if you enjoyed today's show, please consider making a donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure you connect with us on social media. The show is at KI Strong Style. You can also follow us at Social Suplex. You can follow me at Jeremy L. Donovan. On Facebook, we are facebook.com/socialsuplex. You can also follow us at /group/wrestling_circle. On Instagram, we are at Social Suplex. On Reddit, I'm the Pro Black Guy. Y'all just keeping it strong style. You can email me, Jeremy, at socialsuplex.com. Make sure you check out all the other shows here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. On Sundays, we have One Nation Radio, hosted by Rich Latta and James Boyd. On Wednesdays, we have the Ricky and Clive Wrestling Show from Scotland. On Thursdays, we have the Grave Consequences Podcast with Caleb and Maserati. And on Fridays, we have the 8-Bit Suplex with Josh Number 2 and Sandy. On Saturdays, we have All Things Elite with Floyd and Austin. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review. And we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Ichiban.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.